Good afternoon, our dear veterinarians. I am Rodrigo Escobar from Medicom Pacific, and we would like to formally welcome each and every one of you to our webinar brought to you by PVET, the most trusted drug reference for veterinarians practicing in the Philippines. So binabati ko po kayong lahat from all over the Philippines. Nako, meron pang nanonood all the way from Hong Kong. So nako, this webinar has gone international, mga kaibigan. Nako, maraming salamat sa pagdalo sa ating webinar ngayong hapon, no? So as you may have seen in the invites, our subject for this webinar is very crucial in your practice, especially in the livestock scene, no? And at the end of the day, we hope that you could learn a lot about the importance of your role as a veterinarian in providing the best practices for helping poultry farm owners prevent the entry of avian influenza in their premises. So not only that, you will also learn about the proper steps in reporting cases in AI-positive farms, as well as the correct steps to take for flock repopulation. So very exciting tong hapon natin at marami tayong matututunan. So this will be a very learning-filled afternoon. So we all hope that you could finish until the end. So as you may have seen in your invitation as well, this webinar is duly recognized by the Philippine Regulatory Commission for Veterinarians, and finishing it will merit you 2 CPD points. So dalawa po yung CPD points na makukuha nyo dito, no? So yun. So I just wanna set some house rules lang before we begin and introduce our speaker. So first, by being present here, you agree to the data privacy terms and conditions of Medicom Pacific, the company behind PVET and the FilipinoVet.com. The link to the privacy policy is included in the email sent to you yesterday and earlier for this event. Second, this event is recorded and we will be publishing this on our YouTube page para pwede nyo pa rin mapanood yung lecture kahit hindi na live. No? So yun nga lang, the CPD points will only be awarded to those who attended the live webinar. So that means you guys, kayo po yun. No? Third, please set your Zoom name to your PRC registered name. So you can do this by hovering over your name in the Zoom window. Kapag naka-desktop or naka-browser kayo, no, you can hover it by clicking more, and then dun sa more nakalagay doon rename. So pakipalitan po siya with your PRC registered name. If you are on your mobile devices or on your tablets, you have to click the back button, and then you click your profile, and then you tap the display name to change your name. Fourth, all of your microphones are muted, so we can all clearly hear the lecture our speaker has prepared for us. So this is also to avoid any static feedback that may result from numerous microphones turned on. So nevertheless, kahit naka-mute po tayo, all of you are encouraged to participate and ask questions to our speaker using the Q&A icon at the bottom of your window. So it's that little button katabi ng raise hand na icon. So you can type your questions there, and later our speaker will do his best to answer all of them in the end. So sixth, as mandated by the Philippine Regulatory Commission, all attendees are required to answer a quiz after our Q&A segment at the end of the webinar. So I would like to encourage everyone to listen attentively, since all of the answers dun sa quiz will be related to the topics that will be discussed by our speaker. So for the quiz naman, you will have to complete this immediately after the lecture, and you will only be given 30 minutes to answer them from the time that we end, after the time that we end the Q&A. No? So after we're done with the entire program, sa Q&A, wala muna pong aalis ng Zoom. No? Please do not leave the Zoom webinar just yet. Kailangan nyo po tapusin yung quiz and yung PRC feedback form right after the lecture. So 10 questions lang naman po yung quiz, and everyone is required na sagutin yun, and yung passing score is 50%. And just a gentle reminder that no quiz, pag wala pong quiz, ibig sabihin po wala pong certificate na makukuha or walang CPD points. And that kapag below 50% yung nakuha nyo score, it may result in getting your CPD points reduced, or baka wala po kayong makuha at all. So once you've passed the test and pasado po lahat, a digital copy of your CPD certificate will be sent via email using the email that you have provided in the registration. And just please give us 15 to 20 working days for us to process this. And if you would like to request a hard copy of your certificate, please let us know by sending us an email at info@thefilipinovet.com. So, charge lang po namin kayo ng shipping fee and printing fees, pero libre po itong webinar na to, no, if you want it to be delivered to you. Lastly, I'm not sure if alam niyo po ito lahat, no? And some of you may know this. This is already our second run of the same webinar about avian influenza, and we conducted this noong January 10. So January 10 of this year, we conducted the same webinar. Please note that those who attended the first webinar, so yung mga nandun po ng January 10 event natin, will not get CPD points as part of PRC's regulation on attendance management. So kailangan po lahat po tayo dito, first time natin umattend ng webinar tungkol sa topic ng avian influenza. Kapag nandun po kayo sa webinar namin noong January 10 on the same topic, certificate of attendance, may makukuha po tayo. Pero yung PRC, yung points po for the CPD, yung 2 points, hindi po natin siya pwede i-credit sa inyo kasi nakuha niyo na po siya dun sa naunang webinar of the same topic. So, ayun po. Again, ulitin ko lang po, all of you must be present from the beginning until the end of the webinar para makakuha ng certificate of completion. So, there you go. Last na lang, I also have some very exciting news, no? You can now completely digitalize your practice and offer services to a much wider audience through the PVET Clinic app. So you may use this as a drug reference and a platform to create e-prescriptions for your patients. No? So download the PVET Clinic app, and I'm inviting and encouraging everyone to do so. Download niyo po to sa Play Store or sa iOS for iPhone, for iOS devices, Play Store for Android, or you may just scan the QR code flashed on your screens. So ayan po yun. No? So all of you are also invited to join our Viber community where you can get information on the latest news and updates in relation to your veterinary practice. So dito rin po tayo nag-a-update, maliban sa email, no? Dito rin po tayo nag-a-update ng mga updates pagdating sa PVET app, pati sa mga iba't ibang events kagaya po nito. So there you have it. So should you have any questions, you are free to ask it in the Q&A section and our team will answer you there. So ayun po. So ang dami ko nang sinabi. Before I introduce our speaker, last na po talaga, me and the team would like to get an idea on how everyone is doing. Gusto lang po namin kayo kamustahin, no? So magpo-poll muna po tayo saglit. So in your Zoom window, you should see a small window pop out of your screens. So ayan po, ayan. So my first poll, how confident are you in your knowledge of avian influenza and the ways to prevent and control its spread? So pakisagutan lamang ho para at least alam po natin yung kalagayan ninyo. So just select your answer and then click submit. Yeah, very confident, somewhat confident, not confident at all. Okay. Shout out po pala sa mga taga Iloilo, taga Southern Mindanao, taga Antipolo, taga Taytay. Wala bang taga Marikina? Taga Marikina po ako eh. Taga La Trinidad, Benguet. Ayun. Ayun. Maraming salamat po sa pag-attend. And we hope na marami po tayong matututunan this afternoon. Okay. Okay. Nakasagot na po ba lahat? Okay. Ayan. So, ayan po. So, karamihan po ay 65% of you are somewhat confident. Tapos 22% are not confident at all. Tapos very confident ay 13%. Nako, at the end of this webinar, we just hope na everyone will be very confident or excellently confident when it comes to dealing with avian influenza. No? That's the goal naman of this webinar para po sa ating lahat po ito. Para sa ating farmers, poultry farmers to be more specific. Okay. Now na tapos na po yung reminders natin, yung poll, tapos na rin po. We know how you guys feel. Di ko na po ito papatagalin. I will introduce our speaker. He is a graduate of Doctor of Veterinary Medicine at the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. He worked in the area of sales all over the Philippines with multinational companies like Elanco, Boehringer, Intervet, and Schering Plough. He focused on technical services with Fort Dodge as the poultry and technical and marketing manager. He was then acquired by Pfizer as the senior field veterinarian for poultry and was part of the global poultry team for Zoetis. Since 2015, he started being a poultry consultant with the chicken doctors and is now handling breeder, broiler, and layer accounts in South Luzon. He is currently the president of the chicken doctors. He acts as a third-party veterinarian for various animal health companies, and in 2018, he was admitted as a diplomat to the Philippine College of Poultry Practitioners. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, allow me to welcome Dr. Oji Laranas. Oji.
Good afternoon. Host, I can't turn on my camera.
Ay. Teka lang, Doc, ha? Our team is working on that.
Yeah.
Kumusta po kayo, Doc?
Yeah, I'm here. Medyo hectic lang yung schedule. And so glad to make it. Yon, finally.
Ayan. Sige, Doc. I'll leave the floor onto you. Bali, we have 150 plus attendees now. Very excited to learn. So, I give the floor to you po, Doc.
Ayan, good afternoon to everybody, to PVET. Thank you for having me back on this webinar. As mentioned, we had this webinar before, but I added a few updates with what's happening right now with bird flu. And we're still very busy with trying to handle the disease. The country is still, we're still bird flu positive. We're still not there with the bird flu free, freedom. And also globally, bird flu is still there, causing a lot of problems. All right. So as introduced, I'm currently the president of the chicken doctors. These are the chicken doctors: Dr. Chris Patawaran, Eugene Tan, Dr. Raul Tamayo, Dr. Dennis Alfonso, and Farmer Pip. Most of my presentation is a collection of all our experiences handling bird flu-like cases, handling some bird flu cases, and again, we want to share this to you. Some of the slides you might see if you were able to attend some of my lectures before, medyo parang recycled siya, but still it is because it's still the same information that we need to share to everybody and we need to review to everybody. So still, as I've said, the country still has bird flu, and it's still, these presentations, these seminars, these information campaigns is still a rally, a campaign to call more veterinarians to the cause in terms of trying to come up with better control of the outbreak. Okay, we've seen a lot of development and a lot of veterinarians already involved, but I think moving forward and trying to stop the outbreak, control the outbreak, and help the farmers, more veterinarians involved will really help hasten getting back being a bird flu-free country. So, again, sharing you experiences on the roles of the veterinarian in a bird flu outbreak. And basically, this is just a review. Why are veterinarians important? Aside from, yes, we're important for food security, it's also mandated by law that farms should have a veterinarian. This is just a reminder to everybody, according to the Animal Welfare Act of 1998, all farms with a minimum stocking density of at least 40,000 broilers, 30,000 layers, or 2,000 breeders shall have an attending veterinarian. So that means veterinarians, the Filipino veterinarians attending right now, it means may trabaho po tayo because kailangan nating bantayan lahat ng mga farms with this number of chickens in their farm. All right. So what are our roles right now? First, we have to understand what's the bird flu outbreak in the Philippines like. Is it the same in other countries? Or is it moving the same way? Are it affecting the same kind of population of operations? So that's what we're looking at. Here in the Philippines, well, we have a Marites culture. And the problem with the Marites culture is misinformation about bird flu has done more damage in the Philippine poultry industry other than the disease itself. Because dito, machismis ka lang na itamaan ka ng bird flu, na chismis lang ang isang probinsya na nagkaroon ng bird flu kahit wala pang confirmation ng lab, bumabagsak agad ang presyo ng broilers or ng eggs. And this really hurts the farmers. And the only way to counter these marites rumors or this misinformation is to have persons of authority to educate the stakeholders and handle the misinformation. And I think that is one of the major roles of a practicing veterinarian, to counter the misinformation and educate farmers and the public about bird flu. Okay. Since 2017, when bird flu was first reported in the Philippines, the chicken doctors have been very active in the information campaign. And I think one of the things that the basics a veterinarian should know about disease to counter the misinformation is, again, basic knowledge and background about the disease. You have to know the disease. What are the clinical signs of bird flu? Symptoms? How is it transmitted? What are the infection sources? And are there methods of treatment and control? Also, the veterinarian should be very active in all these meetings and all these consultations. And syempre, to counter the marites with people who try to milk out from the outbreak, we should have also a counter marites network of practicing veterinarians sharing the right information to counter misinformation. So, let's now review. This is part of the information campaign. What's bird flu? I know I saw 30% of people already very confident about bird flu, but I saw some people still have low confidence with bird flu. I hope this presentation will give you a little more confidence in knowing what the disease is. So, bird flu is a viral zoonotic disease caused by influenza A orthomyxovirus. It affects mostly migratory birds, poultry, waterfowls, and pet birds. So, we're very thankful with PVET that they had this webinar again at this time of the year, because in preparation, we are not, honestly, we're not getting a lot of confirmed reports right now of bird flu as compared last year. But we are now concerned that the migratory birds will be arriving by fourth quarter again. And I think, hopefully wala silang dalang baon, but we can prepare now if ever they're carrying new strains of bird flu to the country, because basically they're one of the best, one of the greatest transmitters of the disease all over the world. So, geographical distribution, this is an old slide. I am very sorry, I don't have an updated slide, but this only goes to show you how the regions in the world that are affected by bird flu. And as you can see, most of this, actually hindi lang nasali dito. Brazil already has a reported case of bird flu, so I think there should be a dot in South America already. So any movement of your migratory birds, and when they carry the virus, they can carry it again to the whole world. So that's why we're bracing for the arrival of these birds, and hopefully we can prevent whatever they're transmitting. Now, as a disease, bird flu is a very fast-moving disease, highly contagious. So the incubation period in poultry is a few hours to a few days. Actually, parang 2 days lang tatamaan na ang isang bird. Then if not controlled, it can spread and contaminate other birds in as fast as 2 weeks. That's why when we have bird flu-like reports or bird flu-like symptoms, what we look at is the epidemiology and the movement of mortalities. Kasi usually, if it's a bird flu case, highly contagious case, you would see other farms getting contaminated within that 2-week period. So that's how we now look at if we're looking at a bird flu-like case, a suspect bird flu case, or it's not a bird flu case, just by looking at the movement. Now, in terms of clinical signs, it's very hard to suspect bird flu. It looks like other diseases, but like other diseases, what do you see in bird flu? There's decreased feed and water intake, depression, edema and cyanosis of the unfeathered skin, ecchymosis of the shanks and feet. So to review, those are the bleeding you see on the legs, or sometimes bleeding or petechial hemorrhages all over the body. And this is because of the very high fever that birds get when they get infected by bird flu, especially on the height of infection. They will get very high fever. You get those bursting of capillaries all over the body, and you get those signs. Is this pathognomonic for bird flu? If you see that, sadly, no, because it also happens in other diseases. But what's very characteristic about bird flu is once you see these signs, it's coupled with a lot of mortality. And so far, based on our Philippine experience, when you look at a lot of mortality, we are not talking about tens, 20s. We're talking about hundreds and thousands per day. That's why, yun nga, based on our Philippine experience, in the span of 2 weeks, you would see a wipeout in some farms that are not have not diagnosed bird flu immediately and not able to make control, talagang nawa-wipe out sila. Now, again, sharing this information campaign done by the Bureau of Animal Industry. I'm not sure if they're still using this graphic right now, but again, the signs are very general. Pamamaga ng binte, pamamaga pagiging kulay na asul ng palong, pananamlay ng katawan, hindi normal na tuwi pagbabagal ng pangingitlog for egg laying operations. But yun nga, ang sinasabi ko dito is those are general like signs, but if you see signs like this, then with a lot of mortality, then magsususpect ka na po ng bird flu. As I've said, for example, you're looking at nervous signs, you're looking at respiratory signs or declines in egg production, depression, you would see it in other diseases also. So it's so hard to diagnose right now. So that's where the veterinarian is very important, because the veterinarian helps in making the differential diagnosis and makes the current programs, medication, vaccination, biosecurity programs to prevent all diseases from happening. And so that you can hone and really put a sniper shot on what disease you really want to control. Kasi nga, pag hindi mo ma-estimate yan, you do a shotgun treatment as a practitioner, it might be too late for you to diagnose bird flu immediately. Then the spread of the disease becomes faster and you can't do anything about it anymore. Once you open up birds, just in case you're looking at, you have suspect signs, you would see a lot of edema and cyanosis of the head, wattle and comb, and then petechiae. Kumbaga, sabi ko nga, kung nagkakaroon ka ng ecchymosis sa shanks, you see a lot of petechial hemorrhages rin internally sa heart, even sa may fat pads or even other organs in the muscles, you would see a lot of these lesions na makikita. So, sharing again, these are the pictures from the 2017 bird flu case in Pampanga. The pictures are not mine. These are pictures. I'm sorry, I forgot to cite the source of the pictures, but these were pictures from the veterinarians who were the first ones to investigate the case. And this is what the cyanosis on the combs look like, respiratory signs look like. Here, si Venturina and Cabana and Tariga pala. Yun, that's the source of these pictures last 2017. And these are the mortalities. And if you look at the necropsies, you would see the petechial hemorrhages. Are these pathognomonic signs? Again, these are not pathognomonic signs, but based on the positive bird flu cases, these were what they saw. Okay, so this is the proventriculus naman, na sometimes if you are not aware, you might mistake this as a Newcastle disease problem. You would see the regression of egg follicles here. If you can see the pointer, these are the regression of egg follicles for this laying flock that was affected. Other parts showing petechial hemorrhages. Ito, medyo, this is from the heart. And there's no specific treatment for influenza virus infection in animals. Yun nga eh, part of the misinformation that I'm looking at is if you would see social media, you would see some wonder products claiming that this can solve bird flu or what. But as of now, there's still no specific treatment once an infection is there. Okay? What I see is a lot of preventives. And do the preventives work? Yes, we're working with it. We're trying to document it also. And you can always check PVET for these types of products. And still the control worldwide, though vaccination is already considered, it's still the population pa rin for affected flocks talaga to stop the spread of the problem. Okay? Now, here in the Philippines, what are the diagnostic tests we do? We do ELISA, HI, and PCR. And the samples that are usually collected are oropharyngeal, tracheal, or cloacal swabs from live birds. Samples from internal organs are also tested, and blood samples are also tested. Okay? That's why if you have your farms accredited for bird flu, they will collect 32 samples of blood samples paired with 32 samples of oropharyngeal swabs. Yun ang standard test na ginagawa natin. I know right now there are a lot of kits available. So we have rapid test kits already available also. Yun nga lang yung accuracy ng test needs to be verified pa. So the official tests for diagnosis are still accredited government laboratories po. Okay? And ang pinaka-confirmatory pa rin natin for bird flu here in the Philippines is when H5 or H7 is detected by PCR. Because that's what we're testing. We're testing for highly pathogenic avian influenza. Sometimes, if you do the rapid test kits, kung minsan kasi may mga nagte-testing, nagpa-positive sila sa bird flu, yun nga lang, nagne-negative sa PCR. So ano yung nahuli doon? We're investigating that because that could be low pathogenic AI, kaya nagre-react siya sa rapid test kit. So that's not an H5 or H7. So usually, based sa aming mga investigations, parang mga H9 na low pathogenic AI ang nade-detect. So right now, avian influenza testing can be done by both government and accredited private laboratories. Yun nga lang, if you had it tested for private laboratory, once the private laboratory tests your samples as positive, they will have to submit it to the government lab. So usually, ang nangyayari ngayon, some farms, pag masyadong clogged up ang testing sa isang government laboratory, they can have it tested to an accredited private laboratory now. So siguro, trabaho rin ng ating mga veterinaryo ngayon na nagpa-practice because I've seen on the poll na we have a lot of veterinarians coming from other regions in the Philippines. You can look for these laboratories just in case your government laboratory or the local government laboratory cannot test your samples. So pwede kayong magpa-test. Yun nga lang, the rule for that is pag nag-positive, kailangan pa rin i-report sa bureau. Okay, as I've said, the case definition for bird flu, for you to be positive for bird flu. Kaya this is how we counter misinformation, lalo pag may nagchichismis na, ala, sa lugar na to, may bird flu na yan kasi ang daming namamatay. And we always ask them, were the birds tested? If the birds were not tested, you cannot immediately say that that is bird flu. That is a suspect case, and I think biosecurity measures should be in place because a confirmed case should be a positive result of an H5 or H7 virus through PCR virus isolation test. Okay? In a flock, kahit isang ibon lang po ang mag-positive sa PCR, that flock is considered exposed or contaminated na po, according to the AIPP. Okay? So, how is bird flu transmitted? Bird flu is transmitted by your secretions, bird to bird po. So, the viruses have shown to be shed in the feces and respiratory secretion of birds. So, yun ang pinagdududahan nating transfer, fecal-oral transmission. That's why, if a positive migratory bird, for example, coming siya from a bird flu positive country, lumipad siya sa ating bansa, and they mingle with our local birds, the transmission from your migratory to your local birds is what transfers the disease. And then if these local birds, for example, in this picture, this is a Philippine picture, these are your local egrets just standing beside this layer farm. And as you would see, this layer farm does not have any bird proofing. So if ever there is this egret that was exposed to a migratory bird and fly up to these birds can contaminate these layers. All right? So as much as possible, we would want to stop the spread of the virus by also stopping the fecal-oral transmission bird to bird. So kung alam natin na manggagaling siya sa ipot, manggagaling siya sa balahibo, manggagaling siya sa secretions, kung anything that was exposed to an infected animal, that's what we clean and disinfect to make sure it does not contaminate our birds, our farms. Okay? So now, bird flu virus, though very highly contagious, is quite fragile as compared to what's affecting the swine industry right now with ASF, which is a very sturdy virus. Bird flu, on the other hand, can easily be killed with proper biosecurity, or even it has even low times environment actually. Yun nga lang, pag naitago siya in organic material, dun siya tumatagal naman po. Pero pag na-expose siya sa UV, na-expose siya sa disinfectants, mabadali siyang mamatay. So sabi ko nga, observations in the field can survive in the feces for as long as 105 days. So if the feces in the farms were not handled well or not collected regularly or treated, then it could stay for that long. But if it's in a cold environment, yun nga, that's why sometimes it's been an issue on the shipment of bird flu positive chicken from getting imported chicken from bird flu positive countries, kasi the bird flu virus can survive in this frozen environment. So we have to be careful on, the government should be very careful on receiving imported products. Kaya nga sabi nga namin, with bird flu all over the world, sana nakokontrol rin ng pagpasok ng importation ng mga poultry products na to, especially if they come from bird flu positive countries. So nabanggit naman sa State of the Nation address na they will now look at smuggling, so hopefully they could also stop the spread of bird flu through infected imported poultry produce. Okay? So sabi nga, why is it important? So example, in poultry meat, at a pH of 7, the virus can survive at 6 months at 4 degrees Celsius. So as much as possible, hopefully the government does not get imported meat from bird flu positive countries. So what are the infection sources right now here in the Philippines when you're looking at bird flu? Again, any fecal-oral or secretions or organic material from infected birds can be contaminated through the water, feed, and litter. Okay, so eto, personal experience. I was investigating an outbreak from this farm, suspect bird flu. when I did not visit the farm, we just did it online because I don't want to risk my farms. Pero what we saw was, I saw that the biosecurity in the farm was very tight. And I was wondering where the source of infection were. Because the farm was actually on a closed, in a tunnel vent system. So there's no exposure to migratory birds or outside birds. People have uniforms, people have good biosecurity. Where did the infection come from? So I had to interview the farmer and get the information needed. So what the information I got was, this farm had a lot of layers. Oops, nabanggit ko yung operation. Anyway, this farm had a lot of chickens. And during that time, there was also an ongoing rise in raw material price. Eventually, they were able to see that there was this raw materials being sold at a very low price. So they bought it. And eventually, when we traced it back, the low-cost material came from an infected farm. So that farm actually does not have any chicken anymore. So yung kanilang raw materials, I think that was corn or soya, they sold it na lang to other farms. So once we investigated it, and then when I saw how the epidemiology worked out inside the farm, the spread of the disease, we were able to trace back that the feed raw materials was the source of the infection inside the farm. And that wiped out the birds in the building. So let's be very careful about this. Now, in other cases, wild birds, again, insects, rodents, equipment. So as we are looking at the arrival of migratory birds, again, I think we should be very careful with the swamp areas or the DNR protected areas where the migratory birds are coming, because we have to make sure that they are not in contact with our local poultry. And of course, humans, housing, and vehicles. Even as veterinarians, we have to be very careful, especially when we're investigating high mortality cases. We need to have our cars car washed, disinfections, even take a bath, because we might be the best transmitters of the virus all over the country. Okay, and that's been making my rounds all around the Philippines very difficult, because I cannot visit multiple farms in one day now because of bird flu. And last but not the least, still one of the major sources of infection here in the country is the movement from infected bird to another farm. So for example, hindi mo alam na ang nag-call out pala ng farm na to, kaya siya nag-early culling, is because nagkaroon na siya ng suspect mortalities. Then eventually gusto mong punuin yung farm mo, and you bought these stocks not knowing that they were already harboring the problem. And that is one of the reasons why the movement of adult birds like ready-to-lay pullets, game fowls, and other adult birds have to be controlled or have to be monitored, because they are very good sources of infection. Okay? So, right now, to prevent bird flu, it's actually still trying to lock down your farms and prevent the entry of any infected material or infected flock. So if we move all in, all out, it's very helpful, because cleaning and disinfection becomes very effective. But then, right now, we really discourage the movement of adult birds from farm to farm. If you're moving adult birds, if you're a broiler farm, move it to the slaughterhouse. If you're culling it, move it to slaughter again. Wag mo na ilipat sa ibang farm, because the risk of reusing culls, especially if you are not in direct contact with the farm that you're buying, dumaan ka lang sa ahente, it's very difficult po. And again, if everybody is informed, if all of the people in the farm, from the farm personnel, asawa ni farm personnel, anak ni farm personnel, ay involved at dito, knowing that it's a zoonotic disease, bird flu can transfer from the chicken to humans, and humans can transfer it to the chickens, I think you can help prevent the entry of this disease in your farm. Now, as I have said, bird flu is very sensitive to disinfectants. And you can use all this: sodium hypochlorite, ethanol, quaternary ammonium compounds, glutaraldehyde, formaldehyde, phenols, povidone, iodine, peroxidase. As long as it has a claim for enveloped viruses, it can kill bird flu. If you don't know what to use, I think in the chat, PVET already posted the link on how to download their app. You can always find these types of products in PVET. So for example, this is an example of a product that is effective for bird flu. This is Biosoft. So as you would see, it has claims for avian infectious laryngotracheitis virus and H5N1. So as veterinarians, as long as we use the proper dosage, the antiviral dosage, kasi mahirap naman kung prophylactic dose rin, baka hindi niya mapatay ang viruses, we make sure that you use the proper dosaging, and you can find that with PVET. All right. So what if bird flu is already there? Again, biosecurity, use of ionizing radiation. Bird flu, yun nga, sabi nga namin, if bird flu is happening already, people should not be afraid to eat poultry products pa rin, because heat can kill the virus naman. That's why there's no transmission from food to humans ng bird flu. And if the bird flu is, it also dies in extreme pH. Too acidic, too basic, the virus does not survive. So the key to control of any bird flu suspect cases is a quick response. Quick, ibig sabihin, the veterinarian should know immediately what to do once it's already suspecting bird flu. Immediately lockdown, control, movement, what disinfectants to use, what can you use, what antivirals you can use. Kasi at the end, if you will not be able to control it, then the next thing you'll have to do as the veterinarian is to report that you were hit already. Okay, so globally, we're still looking at control. These are pictures. This one's from Korea on how they dump all their birds. And this one, this is how we euthanize our birds right now to yung dislocation ng neck joint. So, ano ba nangyari sa Pilipinas ngayon with the bird flu? Again, as I've said, my first experience was August 11, 2017. First publicized bird flu case, kumbaga, pinpublic ni then Secretary Manny Piñol. So, even though the first case of avian influenza was detected in 2005, yung first na news talaga siya, na social media siya, was August 11, 2017. So, dito ako naging active. Then it moved to other places, Nueva Ecija, then to Pampanga. Then eventually, it went back February 22, 2022. Started with quails and ducks. Sadly, it affected other poultry operations. Now it's affecting broiler breeders, layers, broilers, game pound, and more native chicken. So from February 22 until today, we are still considered infected with bird flu as a country. So, as of July 21, 2023, according to the Bureau of Animal Industry report, there's a total of 312 laboratory-confirmed cases nationwide since start of the outbreak in 2022. 17 provinces have been affected, and in the Philippines, more than 2 million birds have been reported as mortality or culled due to the outbreak. If you look at data from other countries, they're looking at 10 to more birds culled actually in Japan, in US, because of bird flu. Now, so medyo puro bad news yun. Let's look at the good news. Well, the good news as of July 7, 2023, actually July 21, 2023, we have provinces already that are bird flu free. So, as I've said, there are 17 provinces affected. So out of the 17, these provinces have been uh, declared bird flu free. So we got Camarines Sur, Davao del Sur, which were infected by ducks. Then Rizal, South Cotabato, Ilocos Sur, Batangas, and Capiz. So sa 17, may 7 na tayo pong bird flu free. 10 provinces na lang in the country ang wala pa pong bird flu free status. So what's the veterinarian's role? It's our role really to prevent all these kinds of mortalities and to prevent the spread. Make sure once we see high mortalities, we know how to identify if it's bird flu or not. Because our methods of control will depend on it. And it will depend also the status of the provinces where you report the cases kasi. So why am I showing this video? The video on this one, the one with the tractor, this is not a bird flu case. This is just a high mortality case of growing pullets from a farm, a tunnel ventilated farm that lost electricity. While the picture on the right, these are actually bird flu infected ready-to-lay pullets shipped to a non-bird flu infected province. So nakalusot po, na-deliver, pero nung na-deliver, patay lahat ng bird flu yung na-deliver. At na-contaminate niya pa yung probinsya. So, as of now, what are though there are only 312 cases, and we don't see a lot of reports, us, with the chicken doctors, with the PCPP, and the PVMA, we're still monitoring bird flu. And we get our Maritas reports pa rin. For example, this year lang, February 2, may balita daw nagka-AI sa Santa Maria, Bulacan. Tapos yun nga, pag tinanong namin, where did the infection come from? Bumili daw ng CALS, then i-recycle, then RTL ang tinamaan. Tapos meron rumors nung May 19, restock layer farm in Kulkul, affected by bird flu again. Tapos eventually nalaman, bumili pala ng ready to lay na walang papeles. Then lately, last July, Doc, good afternoon, may nabalitaan ba kayo sa na layer farm tinamaan? So, ang nangyayari, what the veterinarians do right now is we don't look at these reports and take it for granted. These reports are given to the local government units and the Bureau of Animal Industry for them to investigate. Okay? Do the veterinarians announce that these farms were hit by bird flu? No. Because the only government body that can declare that this farm is hit by bird flu is the Bureau of Animal Industry lang po. So if there's no report from the Bureau of Animal Industry that these farms that reported in the Maritas reports were hit, then this will be considered a Maritas report lang. Okay? So that's the current status of bird flu in the country. So that's a review. That's the first part of my presentation. So, PVET, pwede pahinga muna ako konti.
Okay. Okay, Doc. Salamat. That's for our first module, which is basically having a basic understanding of the outbreak in the Philippines. No, it pays to learn a lot about AI and understanding how it impacts the livelihood of a lot of our livestock farmers. So malaking bagay na pinakakita ko dito is malaking bagay na naiintindihan natin yung sakit para hindi tayo solely umaasa sa chismis. So no, sa mga Marites reports nga, sabi nga ni Doc, kasi nga mas delikado ang misinformation minsan kaysa sa actual na sakit na binabalita. It's also a bit surprising to know that these are all struggles that all of us are facing, not just in isolated areas in the country but all over the Philippines. Kaya napaka-importante na malaman natin kung ano ba yung role ng isang vet pagdating sa pagkontrol ng sakit na ito. Malaking bagay rin na that's why earlier when we asked kung taga saan kayo lahat, and all of you answered pretty much mula Apari hanggang Gulo. Medyo malaking bagay yun sa amin to know na itong webinar na to, the information about avian influenza is being spread not just within Metro Manila but in yung mga kalapit na probinsya but also all over the Philippines. No? So not to mention kasi nga ang laki pa nagagastos at ang daming naapektuhan na farms, especially if you are a poultry farmer. But on the bright side nga, at least we know that there are protocols in place and all of these things can be controlled and there are actions being done towards it. Now, speaking of battles that we face, no, avian influenza being one of them, the first lecture was very informative in making us understand the implications of this disease. Sabi nga nila, the key to winning a battle is to start by knowing your enemy. Siguro, yung pinaka-key takeaway ko dito is that the role of a vet goes beyond just managing and controlling the disease. So the vets also have a responsibility as well with the information being shared about bird flu. So now that we have some understanding about AI, yung next module natin will discuss how we can manage and document poultry farms during in an event of an outbreak. So mga our dear vets, mga doc, remind ko lang ulit that there will be a quiz later that everyone is required to answer as mandated by the PRC. And kailangan maka 50% score tayo doon. Yun yung passing rate. So I hope everyone is listening attentively to the lecture. Now we move on to our next module, which aims to answer how we can manage poultry farms should there be an outbreak of the disease. Doc Oji, back to you po.
Hello. Okay, still there. So again, sabi nga, you can post your questions po in the chat and we will be answering it later. So next is another important role of the veterinarian right now. Kaya medyo nagkakaroon din tayo ng trabaho is the current management and documentation of farms to be accredited to be bird flu free. So it's our role right now to make sure that these facilities that we're handling or even help farms that wants to be accredited, we help them and teach them how to accredit their farms. So, ano bang nagbago sa accreditation? Ang documentation natin is first, the animal facility has to be registered. And the Bureau of Animal Industry has been very nag-adjust na in fairness to the Bureau of Animal Industry, the Animal Welfare Office, nasa new normal na sila eh. Kaya hindi nila tinanggal yung mga online Animal Welfare Act webinars. Kaya mas nagiging madali ngayon na mag-attend. Kasi dati you have to go to BAIPA personally to attend this and be certified. But right now you can do it just by logging to the Bureau of Animal Industry and looking at schedules for the animal welfare accreditation seminars. Kasi they're really implementing this. So you make sure that the farm or the poultry farm or whatever operations you have this animal welfare certification. Okay? So first, you apply and get the documents. You fill up. So this is what the license to operate for an animal facility would look like. The source, you can find it in the government website. You can see in this slide or on this link. So I think what's good about this, we have to be thankful. PVET will also show this presentation to YouTube after, and they've recorded this. So you can always go back to these links so that you can forward it to the animal facilities or farms that you handle and make sure that they have an updated animal welfare certificate. Okay, so what does the animal welfare certificate ask for? Syempre, the business should be legal. So meron siyang documents na mayor's permit, business registration, and this is where the veterinarian comes in because the ID picture of the veterinarian with a copy of the veterinarian's updated PRC ID and professional tax receipt. Okay? Hinahanap po yan for an animal to be accredited ng animal welfare yung animal facility. And ito pa, not any veterinarian lang na isasubmit mo ay immediately okay na because the animal welfare certificate registration will also require that the veterinarian signing your documents is you have a legal agreement na siya ang veterinarian nyo. And this is my advice to the young veterinarians right now, wala pa kayong trabaho or whatever, you can help these farms by being their vet and you can have this employment contract or memorandum of agreement that you certify for this farm. So dyan po nagagamit ang mga lisensya natin. And then the animal welfare certificate will have a location plan. And yun nga, the veterinarian should be able to attend and should have an animal welfare accreditation certificate rin. So, ang maganda lang for vets, if you attend an Animal Welfare Act seminar already, you only need to attend one and you are already, that you can already use that again and again. So, hindi siya nire-renew for vets. Tapos may ECC and water potability test, ginagawa na rin po yan ngayon. Okay, so again, may trabaho. This is the veterinarian's role. This is what our licenses are used for. Okay, so mayor's permit would look like that. And ito, so this is my PTR and my PRC. The professional tax receipt, hindi siya ganun kamahal po. Ang binayaran ko lang yata sa PTR ko for Los Baños, nasa 300 lang po. And this is an example of memorandum of agreement wherein you certify for that farm. Kaya dito naman, you value your license. Huwag niyo pamimigay yung pirma niyo sa kahit kaninong farm na hindi nagre-respeto sa profession natin. So make sure that there's an understanding that yes, I will certify for you, but you have to follow the avian influenza protection protocols and other rules of the LGU. All right. This is a screenshot of how you can detect where your farm is. So marami na pong apps na you can use. And this is an example of the certificate of attendance for the Animal Welfare Act na certificate. So I was able to attend last 2020, pero sa totoo lang, I've been attending these seminars before. Akala ko kailangan yearly nag-attend. Pero it's okay rin para ma-review. ECC, yun, medyo madugo ang seminar nito kasi alam ko ilang araw po ito. Pollution pala yun, yung sa pollution control pala. Pero ECC, it's something that you as a farm should have this certificate before putting up a large farm. And water potability test, you have to have your water tested from accredited laboratories rin po. Once you fill this up, you just submit it, then you get your animal welfare certificate. Siyempre, if it's your first time, there will be an inspection from the Office of the Animal Welfare. And once you've done it, these are the fees for farms. So for hog, poultry, cattle, and goat farm, the initial is 1 year. Renewal. So yan po. I think hindi pa rin po nagbabago mga prices na yan. And this is what an animal welfare registration certificate would look like. So now with bird flu still in the country, it's very important your operations have this animal welfare registration, because this is where it all starts. If you don't have this in the first place, then you will not be able to move your poultry products legally to other provinces. All right? Kasi minsan maririnig mo sa ibang farm, Doc, wala naman kami niyan pero okay naman kami. Only to know that their produce is being bought by this middlemen, sinasakay lang nila sa farm na may papeles. And we have to discourage that because with a bird flu outbreak kasi, this organic material, because these are eggs, especially the egg trays, these are very good sources of infection po. So you have to, if you are a buyer or if you are looking at buying bird flu free produce, you only look for products with an animal welfare certificate po. Kasi those are certified by veterinarians. So if there are, yun nga, aside from the animal welfare certification, you will still also have to comply with other local government unit requirements. So there's poultry farm accreditation certificate and others. So usually dito lumalabas ay kailangan i-test yung farm for bird flu, and that's usually every 6 months. So you get this pink certificate yung every 6 months, the Animal Disease Monitoring Compliance Certificate. So after you get an animal welfare registration, you can now be tested for bird flu. If you get a negative test, you get this Animal Disease Monitoring Compliance Certificate, which gives you a 6-month period wherein you can considered bird flu free. Aside from that, it needs a signed vaccination medication program coming from a licensed veterinarian. Okay, so this one, I'll be discussing this in the biosecurity discussion in the presentation. But these are the forms that you can download from BI. And the biosecurity infection evaluation form, parang in-inspect, yan po yung checklist na kailangan ipasa ng farm to get accreditation. Alright? Ang passing po dito ay nasa 40 po. But as you would see, it's a very comprehensive way to look at biosecurity. Total score 72. Sa mga current farms ko, the highest I got from this because of the current setups was 60. Okay? So, pag sinabi, Doc, ang hirap namang ma-accomplish yan. Well, mahirap talaga, especially, for example, hindi nyo na forecast yung distance from the nearest farm, pero pwede ka pong bumawi sa facilities, protocols, and health checks para pumasa. As I've said, yun nga, may farms ako nakaka-achieve ng 60 plus, pero 40 ang ating passing score. So these are the usual checks that we look at, biosecurity, the wheel bats, and then in the form, this is also the form used to submit your samples. So right now, what's good about the government right now is they still offer the bird flu screening test free of charge. And all you have to do right now is to coordinate with your local government unit because sa kanila kasi manggagaling tong transport medium for the swabs. Yung syringe, you can buy it. Usually ginagamit namin 3 ml syringe. And as I've said earlier, it's a paired sample. 32 blood samples paired with 32 oropharyngeal swabs. Okay, then you get a veterinary health attestation. And this is what a vaccination program would look like na sinasubmit natin sa BAI for accreditation. So lagay nyo lang yung age, yung type of vaccine, type of medication given, anong araw, tapos yun, pipirmahan nyo lang po, i-consider na po ng BAI yan. Now, once you get that and you want your operation will you want to move your products all around, your truck should have transport permits. So dito po lalagas yung livestock handlers and transport permit. And yun nga, you won't get a veterinary health certificate or certificate of free status kung wala namang animal welfare kung yung farm, then eventually you get the handler's permit, transport carrier registration, then the shipping permit. So ito yung mga kailangan po for your transport carriers. And once, ito naman, this is an example of a veterinary health certificate. As of now, yan pa rin ang standard na form. Pero nire-require na nila kada veterinaryo to have a control number per vet health certificate. And this is to control foraging or misuse of vet health certificates right now. Tapos ganito ang itsura ng livestock handlers. Ito yung requirements. This is a livestock handler's license coming from these trucks and for the transport carrier. Okay? So all of this you can find online. Then shipping permit rin po, you apply this through the NVQSD na rin po. So because it's electronic, if you don't have enough the documents, mali yung dates, delayed, nagkakaproblema na po kayo pagkuha ng shipping permit. Pero as of now, pag ang isang farm ay natulungan ng vet, ay ang maganda dyan, dire-diretso na to, no hitch. Online na lang, mabilis pa. Okay, so this is what the shipping permit would look like after you get it approved in the NVQSD website. So validity. As of now, ito pa rin ang validity ng ating mga documents. Ang Animal Disease Monitoring Compliance Certificate, 6 months. Ang AI Lab Results, 6 months. So magkasama po yan. Ang vet health certificate natin, 3 days. Kaya hindi pwede yung nagsastock tayo ng vet health certificate minsan kasi nga 3 days lang ang validity. So yun, may trabaho nga tayo lagi. Then shipping permit, local transport 7 days, then animal facility registration certificate, initial 1 year, renewal every 3 years. Okay? Now because medyo may mga farms at may mga areas na tayo na bird flu free, moving forward is you want now to establish a compartment. Okay? Dati we're looking at individual farms lang. But right now that we can have a lot of farms or a community that is protected from bird flu, the next step is have a bird flu free recognized compartment sa province nyo. Or make your province a bird flu free compartment. So, eto, dagdag to. Wala to sa dati kong presentation. I'm now adding this because this is the next step in bird flu control. Especially if you have a bird flu-free area already, what you want to do is to have everybody unite in that area, following one common biosecurity management system and monitoring system so that you can be considered a compartment, a bird flu-free compartment. So, what are the documents needed right now? Kasi, why is this important? With what's happening with bird flu all over the world, some countries, for example, this year, nagkaroon tayo na Taiwan wanted to buy eggs from the Philippines kasi naubusan rin sila ng itlog dahil sa bird flu. Japan wants to buy eggs from the Philippines rin kasi nagkulang sila ng supply. But one of the requirements is they want to buy from a bird flu-free compartment. So, right now, pag tinanong, saan mayroong bird flu-free compartment sa Pilipinas? As of now, to my knowledge, wala pa tayong nare-recognize pa talaga. But with the help of the veterinarians in a community, with all of these operations working together with one biosecurity system, and they get recognized by BAI, then we might have our bird flu-free compartments. So what does it entail? So it needs a poultry farm with at least satisfying the requirements of GAHAP and the Animal Welfare Act. Okay? So lahat ng nasa compartment na yon shall be registered to BAI. Tapos no other poultry species in the buffer zone or the poultry farm aviary. There's a traceability system. All animals within the compartment shall be individually identified. So what does this mean? It means sa isang, for example, sa isang barangay or sa isang lugar, nagkaisa kayo na magkakilala kayo lahat tayo rehistrado, lahat tayo ay sumusunod. Ito yung biosecurity system natin. Meron tayong checkpoints. The poultry farms in that area can qualify to apply for a compartment. Okay? So, mangyayari lang, again, you'll just have to do the criteria for establishing the compartment. So magpapatest po ulit tayo lahat. So para dun sa AI test natin, then eventually nakamonitor yung disease. So ang maganda kasi nito, some farms are already aware of this, but if you can call on your neighbors that you can unite together and submit one form that, hey, dito po sa barangay na to, lahat kami ay nasunod na po, lahat kami ay registrado, lahat kami ay may awa, lahat po kami ay tested. Pag in-inspect po tayo, baka pumasa tayo as a bird flu-free compartment. Tapos yun nga, isa pa, sa bird flu-free compartment, ang maganda kasi niyan, hindi lang yung farm ang registered, pati anything that handles poultry is also capable of handling bird flu, knows bird flu, and has anti-bird flu with good management practices. So it includes your dressing plants. It also includes your feed mills. So as you would see, a bird flu compartment, free compartment, is an area where everybody abides to the conditions set by the AIPP. So how do we know everybody abides by it? Everybody has the right documentation. So this is where, moving forward, expanding our markets, I think this is the best way to protect your areas by becoming a bird flu free compartment. So get all those documents, get all farms in your neighborhood to have those documents, and then apply for a bird flu free compartment sa bahay. Okay? So this is, I'm taking a break from the second part of my presentation. So that's the documentation right now. And hopefully you get the emphasis on getting a bird flu free compartment right now here in the Philippines. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that, Doc OG. No? Sobrang informative ng part of the lecture na to. At least now, more than just understanding the implications of this disease, ano ba itong bird flu disease na to, which is yung first part ng lecture natin. Natutunan din natin ngayon in the second module kung ano ba yung mga paperworks, no? Yung paperworks and requirements na kailangan natin gawin. Kailangan gawin ng ating mga vets, no? So more than just legwork, may paperwork din talaga. But then again, as what Doc OG mentioned, these are all tedious for a reason naman. It is for control and security, that for just to make sure that the flocks are healthy, no? So remind ko lang to all our attendees, no, that since nga I understand that the second module is quite tedious when it comes to important documentations that you guys need, it might be a little hard for everyone to keep track of. So for the benefit of everyone, again, I would like to remind all of you that this will be published in our YouTube page. No? So pwede nyo siya i-revisit anytime, pwede nyo i-review lahat ng mga kailangan nyo asikasuhin na documents, ano yung mga deadline, or ano yung mga, even yung prices nandun kung magkano yung mga fees na babayaran. No? But then again, yun na nga, kung papanoorin nyo to sa YouTube, yung CPD points that's intended for this webinar will only be awarded for those who attended this webinar na live. Okay, so that's it for the first half of the webinar. Half pa lang tayo. We're only halfway through, and I'm sure the next modules will be just as exciting as the first ones. No? So before we move on to our next topics, mabilis na 10-minute break muna tayo. Like mag-CR muna tayo lahat, get your coffee, your water, your drinks, your snacks. So toilet break muna tayo. And as we do that, let's listen to a few words from the organization that made this digital event possible. Okay? So see you guys in 10 minutes. 10 minutes lang, wala pong nang aalis. Hello, welcome back. Welcome back everyone. Nako, may mga umalis dito sa Zoom window na to. Please remind everyone kung kakilala niyo po sila, please tell them to come back kasi hindi pa po tayo tapos. Kanina I mentioned na we are only halfway through the webinar. So we still have two more topics plus may Q&A po tayo. So again, this webinar was made possible through the combined efforts of the Philippine Regulatory Commission and Medicom Pacific, the company behind the FilipinoVet.com and PVet app, and the Philippine Veterinary Drug Directory. So yun, I also would like to reintroduce and re-invite everyone that you can now completely digitalize your practice and offer services to a much wider audience through the PVet Clinic app. So you may use this as a drug reference and a platform to create e-prescriptions for your patients. So just search for PVet Clinic app in Play Store or in App Store, or you can just simply scan the QR code flashed on your screens. Also, all of you are invited to join our Viber community where you can get information on the latest news and updates in relation to your veterinary practice. So dito rin po tayo nag-update ng mga updates pagdating sa PVet app at mga iba't iba pang events kagaya po nito. So ready na po ba tayo for our third module, no? But before that, no, we just want to check up on you guys again through another poll. So tulad nung kanina, you will see a small window pop up in your Zoom screens. So yeah. So have you encountered avian influenza cases in your practice? So just pick an answer and then click submit. Yeah. So we'll give you guys a few seconds to answer this quick poll. Yan, bumabalik na yung mga umalis. I could see the numbers of participants increasing, no? So habol po tayo dun sa quick poll na lumalabas sa screen nyo ngayon. Tapos maganda na i-download natin yung PVet Clinic app, no? Kasi sa ngayon it's still a drug reference application and an e-prescription platform. Pero those are just two of the many functions that it will have. Bali, and we're still developing features that will be beneficial for your practice. Kaya yun, be one of our first users, and madaming vets ang natulungan na nitong platform na to. So, ayun. Pwede nyo din pala, our administrators also sent the links in our chat box. So, pwede nyo po doon i-click. So, pwede nyo i-search mismo yung application sa Play Store or sa App Store. You can scan the QR code I flashed earlier, or you can click the links that were sent via chat. So, ayun. Have you encountered avian influenza cases in your practice? No, so 88% of you guys answered no. Nako, good for you guys. Good for the 114 of you who have not. But 12% of you have experienced an AI outbreak. 15 out of 129 of you. Nako, hopefully, this is a preventive webinar. The more information we know about avian influenza, the more we are able to control its outbreak and its yung pag-advance niya sa mga farms natin, no? So, again, ready na po ba tayo sa ating next module? Again, I would like to remind everyone to stay and finish the webinar, and as mandated by the PRC, meron po tayong quiz that will cover the topics that's discussed. So I hope everyone is taking notes, and later we will open the floor for Q&A with Doc Oji. So our next topic will also be interesting. We will tackle a little bit about your role as a veterinarian in designing a biosecurity program that will address the risks posed by the AI outbreak and some best practices that you can employ to the farms that you handle para maiwasan natin ang pagpasok ng AI sa ating mga farms. So I give the floor back to Doc Oji. So Doc Oji, sige po.
Yun. Welcome back, guys. Still there? Medyo nadidrain na ako. Nasa second part po pala tayo. Anyway, this time, we go now to best practices for biosecurity specific to preventing entry to avian influenza into the farms. Again, I presented this before, but this time I added something based on our experience controlling a viral problem na ngayon ginagawa rin namin if mukhang pwede rin siya for bird flu. So, in terms of protecting your area, you have to identify where the infection source is. I will not say saang part ng Pilipinas to, pero based on the participants, you would know if this is your province or not. But I won't say what province is this, but just imagine all of these rectangular shapes you see here are poultry farms. This one. Now, once the color of the roof changes, it means it belongs to a different owner. How will you make a biosecurity program for this kind of area? Actually, I did a lecture for this area. And I told them that you cannot do a biosecurity program just for your farm if you live in an area like this. You have to come up with a whole biosecurity medication, vaccination, prevention program for everybody. And it's all or nothing, or else BAI will not allow you to repopulate. So, make sure that once you like to protect your area, we'll be able to define how will you protect your area and how can you do a program for everybody. So, this is my suggested poultry outbreak management program. So again, before the outbreak, this is what we're doing. We're doing education, we're doing an information campaign. It is because everybody should be on board. Knowledge is key. Looking at your disease prevention program, make sure you have all what is needed to protect your farm. And I know moving forward, the world is moving on to a vaccination answer for bird flu. So if you would see that, magkakaroon na rin tayo ng bird flu vaccine as part of the program. Now, my comments with regards to the vaccination program for bird flu, it's a very sensitive matter because everybody is still, we're trying to really get all the consultations we get from the PCPP, from the stakeholders on how to do with bird flu vaccine. But my opinion for the bird flu vaccine is the bird flu vaccine is like a firearm or a gun. This should only be used by people who know how to use that gun, licensed to use that gun. And that's where the veterinarian is very important. And a veterinarian who understands bird flu. Okay? That's my opinion about the bird flu vaccine. So, also, in terms of the bird flu problem, you would see these trends kasi. Now, you won't see trends if your farm does not have a good recording system. So you have to have a good recording system. You know what is normal mortality looks like in the farm. You know what normal food intake. Kaya nagsisimula pa lang lagnatin yung isang part ng flock, alam mo na something's wrong. Sabi ko nga, for the control of bird flu, a quick response is needed. And if you've got a baseline of your farm data, you know that something's wrong. You can do something immediately to stop the cases. Right now, if you're looking at vaccination as an option, you might have to add serology and surveillance as part of your baseline. Para alam mo yung titer readings ng meron ng farm mo before you do a vaccination or not. All right? So sa farm audits and checks, from hatchery to your birds immediately, and that's where the vets come in. So this is me and Dr. Chris Patawaran during a PIP test in a breeder. Then you customize your disease prevention program. You review your biosecurity measures, update your vaccination programs, check sensitivity of your medication programs, and a supplementation and recovery program. So if you don't know what the products to use, again, open your PVET app. You would see all of these products from biosecurity, vaccines, supplementation, medication. Now, this is an ideal picture of biosecurity. Bio meaning life, security meaning to protect. But do your farms look like this? Diba? This is an ideal setup. But how do you close your farm from everything and protect it from any infection source from bird flu? What you want to do is, minimize the risk of introduction. And that's why you put in your guards, your fences. You limit the spread of disease between farms. And that's where you get your foot baths, your shower rooms. And syempre, right now, we're looking at bird flu. We're even looking at salmonella right now and other disease of public health concerns. So we make sure that the biosecurity program will protect against that. We prevent the change with passaging. Now, it also happens with bird flu. Kasi if hindi natin nakokontrol yan, we might be introducing or promoting the emergence of new strains of bird flu. Okay? So, nabanggit ko to sa documentation process. So, I would just like to highlight the biosecurity form. Ang tanong kasi lagi dito, is this doable? Can we pass this test? So, ang nire-require lang ng BAI, the farther your farm from another farm, you get more points. So, if your farm is more than 2 kilometers from the next farm, you get 4 points. Pero kung ang farm mo, pag hatching ng manok mo ay tatamaan ng yung manok sa kabilang bakod ka, because less than 500 meters lang, you get 0 points. But if it's 500 meters away, 1 kilometer away, you get 2 points. So hindi naman sila ganun ka-stricto rin. Now sa fence, you get, if you have 2 fence between a perimeter, then fence in between, you get 4 points. But depende sa inspector yan. Shower in, shower out, you get 3 points if you have 1-time shower, 4 points for a 2-time shower. Presence of foot baths, hand sprays, pest control program. So pest control program, ano ang program mo pang langaw, ano program mo pang daga, hinahanap nila yung parang manual na sinusunod nyo po. At anong products ang ginagamit nyo for that. So nire-require yan. Pag napakita nyo na ito yung pest control program nyo sa inspector, you get 4 points. So eto, pag nakita nyo 0 to 4, all or nothing po yan. So it's either you have a pest control program or you don't have a pest control program. If you don't have, it's 0. Pero if meron ka, kahit gano'n kasimple yan, 4 points immediately yan. Okay? Now, do you observe downtime? Supplies decontamination. So usually ang downtime, ang hinahanap nila dyan is you have an identified place where your people can do the downtime. So usually it's a barracks, a quarters away from others, or your shower facilities there. You get 4 points for that. And also, if your biosecurity protocol na nakasulat, naka-poster, nakalagay dyan, that can be counted also as 4 points. Okay, this regular cleaning disinfection, yung ating mortality pits. Tapos ito, very important, 0 to 4 rin to. Don't have other animals that are prone to bird flu rin. So for example, in some farms I've visited, I see wild ducks or free-range ducks at the bottom of the building. Ayoko po nun. That's a biosecurity risk. And also, once you get inspected, you get 0 points if you've got those types of animals inside your farm. Also, if you have stray dogs, cats, na pa-ikot-ikot lang, those are vectors rin kasi for the problem. It should be tied up or it should be far away from your farm. Okay? And no biosecurity measure is measured kung hindi siya nakasulat or hindi siya documented. And usually for the biosecurity protocols, kailangan rin ng pirma natin ng mga veterinarian. And then they check your personal records, the entire drip, yun. So, as I've said, the distance, it's because there are a lot of infection sources. Now, in between buildings, what do you look at? Diba? Sabi ko nga, bird flu does not immediately hit all the birds in one time. Usually what they do is there's a subpopulation na exposed sa contaminated bird, and then they get sick, then they shed, kasi they get sick for at least 2 days, then they start to shed. Pag hindi mo makontrol yung shedding, within 2 weeks, kakalat na yun sa buong farm nyo. So that's why you have to have a program, just in case may affected building ka, you can save your other buildings pa. Okay? So in-farm biosecurity measures, as simple as a foot bath like this, pumapasa na po yan sa bahay, counted na po yan. And then your internal disinfection for your trucks and disinfection for your cages or your birds. Kasi there are disinfectants that you can use in the presence of birds. Okay? Here are other in-farm biosecurity measures that you can follow. So this is the washing of the trucks. This is your foot bath. And this is very effective rin, a disinfection chute. So usually sa disinfection chute, ang maganda kasi dyan, walang exemption. Kahit anak ng farm boy, asawa ni farm boy, ay dadaan dyan, so na disinfect sila. Now, if you want to get more points and decontamination, you can look at Lazada or nag-promote pa ako. You can get this UV ozone double sterilization equipment, put it in a room for your decontamination. So nauso to nung COVID, it also works for bird flu. Okay? And yun nga, total score 72, passing score is 40. And make sure everything is recorded. So right now, what we're doing with making our biosecurity program stronger, we still do a lot of information campaigns. We always attend stakeholders consultations. So I don't know if you were informed, but there were already 2 stakeholder consultations for the vaccine ng bird flu. So hopefully, if they invite again for the practitioners, veterinarians, please attend. Kasi your opinions will be very helpful and very needed. And yun nga, right now, part of the biosecurity is information. So, for example, in the province of Batangas, we have our group chats. And usually this is a composed of, mayroon kaming group chat for vets, may group chats kami for farm owners. At dito, nagkakasumbungan kami. Dito lahat ng mga marites report, yung mga ayaw dumaan sa checkpoint, sinusumbong namin. So this is part of biosecurity rin. Kasi you know what's happening all around. Okay, what happens if you have a problem or a disease? Nagdududa na kayo, may farm na namamatay, na maraming reports na patay. What's very important is, kung farm mo yan, immediately contain the affected building. How do you contain the affected building? Kung masyadong marami yung patay, huwag niyo nang dalhin sa mortality pit yung patay po. Okay, parang, Doc, di ba dapat ilagay namin sa... Kasi ganito yan. Kung nagsususpect ka ng bird flu at itatawid mo yung mga patay na ibon all throughout the farm, ilalakad nyo or we will borrow, itatrack, you are spreading that inside your farm. So if high mortality is combined in a building, huwag nyo munang galawin ang mortality sa building na yan. Gawin nyo po, ipunin nyo yung mortality, ilublob nyo sa disinfectant. So, hindi spray, lublub. Kumbaga, may isang malaking vat ka, lahat ng dead birds, ilulublub nyo sa disinfectant. Why? Based on our experience kasi, pag masyado na maraming patay, tapos masyadong, kasi bundok-bundok ng patayan, tulad ng video na pinakita ko sa inyo kanina. Dogs, wild birds, rats, can be exposed to these dead birds. And they were the ones that will spread the disease all over the farm. Pag niloblob nyo yung mortality muna sa disinfectant, basa sila sa disinfectant, it discourages these dogs, these rats from going kasi mabaho dahil kung sa disinfectant. At baka kaya mo pang ma-prevent pati yung mga secretions coming from the dead birds with the virus, with the proper disinfectant. Challenge vaccination, right now, yun nga, if vaccination becomes an option, if you are in a positive province, I think the vaccine will work. Pero always consult your veterinarian. Now, syempre, once you see an outbreak ongoing, ang pagdududahan mo, hindi naman ka magdududa ng bird flu kaagad. Because aside from that, you will see other signs, respiratory signs. Gamutin nyo muna rin. So you can use antibiotics, have it prescribed by a veterinarian. Kung wala kayong antibiotics, the best you can use is an aerial disinfection or disinfectant or essential oils, phytogenics. And usually sa other buildings, kung wala pang mortalities yung kabilang building, itong building ito, marami ng patay. Ito, wala pa. Yung other buildings, kaya nyo pang habulin yan. Pwede nyong lagyan ng immune boosters, vitamins. And then if ever talaga, as the veterinarian, and nagdududa ka na may problema talaga, it's better to have diagnostics. Wag nyo pong i-suggest sa racer na ibenta niya yung natirang manok. Please. That's, I know, hindi natin maiwasan na mapag-isipan yan, pero as a responsible veterinarian, pag nagdududa ka ng outbreak, huwag nyo po talaga ilabas yung manok. Tapos, syempre, handle the media by telling everybody that you've reported it to the LGU, to BAI, and we'll just have to wait for the official report. So if the official report is not bird flu, then everybody has to respect that. Okay? So wag magpanic. And usually, ang trabaho ng veterinaryo is to calm down the owner and tell them that, yeah, this is what we're gonna do. Kasi nga, if you're not ready, you'll also panic as a veterinarian. But if the outbreak is there, you can immediately, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, let's do this immediately. Kahit pa paano magkakaroon ng security ng konti si farm owner. Okay? So, yun nga lang. Ang kinakatakutan kasi na iba, pag nagpa-test kasi papatay na lahat. Pero that's the most ethical thing to do rin kasi, and to protect your province and the other farms. So once your farm is tested positive, yun nga, according to the AIPP, one bird lang na mag-positive sa PCR, the whole flock is already considered positive. Immediate culling and proper disposal of the birds should be done talaga. So, huwag nyo nang isiping ibenta po talaga, please. Yun ang message ko dito po. Huwag nyo po, pag nagsususpect kayo ng outbreak, huwag nyo po ibibenta yung manok. Mas nakakasama kayo sa community. Okay? Now, this is my experience right now in trying to control viral problems. So, Doc, ano pa pwedeng gamitin? I'm not promoting this product. I'm just saying that these products right now are available and seems to be added on the range of the vets. So, marami tayong sakit ngayon. We have fall adenovirus, we got bird flu, nandiyan pa rin si Newcastle genotype 7, si IB variant. Now, if you don't have the vaccines for that, right now I'm looking at the usage of disinfectants, essential oils, interferon, and alpha-monolaurin. Now, I'm just sharing this experience because this was a confirmed viral problem. Ready to lay uli ang involved. Yun nga lang, pagdating, medyo tumaas ang mortality, tapos hindi nakakahinga, may gasping respiratory signs. So we treated it with antibiotics immediately and multivitamins, amino acid, but eventually mortality started to increase. So isa sa hindi mo mawawala sa duda mo, naku baka bird flu. Now, yun nga lang, buti nagpakita pa ng ibang signs, medyo nagsuspect kami ng infectious laryngotracheitis. Tapos yun nga, history taking, nakuha namin na the RTL supplier did not vaccinate against ILT. So malamang may baong ILT nga ang pinadala. So ang nakita namin is itong mga ibon na to na gasping, di makahinga, may respiratory signs, may napapaga, then tumataas po yung patay. So these are videos, unfortunately they're not playing right now, but you would see the gasping here and the mortality is happening. And this is once you open up the birds, you would see the exudates in the trachea and conjunctivitis caused by infectious laryngotracheitis. Now the problem is this farm does not have access to chicken bryo origin vaccine. They're not allowed to use it. So what was used? We use an antiviral called alpha-monolaurin in feed, 500 grams per ton. And eventually, this type of product can kill viruses daw, inhibits virus maturation. And I got interested with this program kasi because it has a bird flu claim. So this was given in feed. And what's good about is, once we started feeding the animals, nag-peak yung mortality, but eventually they were able to control and make it die down. So the spread of ILT, suspect ILT, was stopped. The viral problem was stopped. So looking at this, these products claiming antiviral claims are worth to be studied by veterinarians. So once I looked at these products, I was able to find out, and I don't know, sa PVET yata, meron rin to. There's a lot of alpha-monolaurin molecules here in the Philippines already. Mayroon galing Italy, mayroon galing Netherlands, tapos may kanya-kanyang halo. But bottom line, these products, if you have a suspect bird flu challenge, or nakamarites report ka na may isang farm na tinamaan sa vicinity nyo, you can put these kinds of products in your farm immediately. Yun nga lang, hindi siya ganun kamura. There's a certain cost. But then, because with their claims for antiviral control, I think these kinds of products are worth the investment. So, ang hindi ko lang nalagay dito is yung interferon studies ko. Pero, again, I'm looking at any product with an antiviral claim, with claims against bird flu and other viral problems. Okay? So, yun nga, you get these types of for example, your farm is in a 1 kilometer level from the infected area. You can use your biosecurity protocols, you can add your antiviral products, and you might survive not being hit even though if you're in the zone. Because your birds are protected and your biosecurity will hold. Is that possible? I think it's possible because we experienced bird flu in Batangas before we got our bird flu free certification. Actually, ginawa namin, we had text blast to everybody na there's a confirmed case. To all commercial farms, you put in your disinfectants, we put in your alpha-monolaurin in feed, your interferon in water, everything. And we were able to prevent the spread from that initial case. So, something to think about. I'm not saying that this is the solution, but at least there's something we can use. Okay? So, just make sure, especially if you're in the zones, the zone is defined as a territory that has natural geographic boundaries. So, make sure that pag sinabing zone, infected zone ka ba, quarantine zone, or surveillance zone, alam mo yung distance mo from the infected case. So that you would know the amount of biosecurity or investment of products you need to put in. Now, any flock mortality or condemnations higher than 0.2% should be monitored and reported to the LGU for further investigation. So, kanina naglagay ako yung Marites report nung meron daw nung July sa Batangas na maraming mortalities. Na-report namin sa LGU yun. And eventually, walang nakita ang LGU na bird flu na case. But na-report na mukhang ILT case siya. So, but still, we still follow the protocol of reporting it to the local government unit. Okay, for the surveillance area, this is very important, especially if you want to be a bird flu-free province. Ang mangyayari kasi sa surveillance, once there's an outbreak, all the farms within the surveillance area, balik tayo, surveillance area, 7 kilometers na yan, itetest po yan. So napakatrabaho po niyan at kailangan po yung tulong ng lahat ng veterinaryong pwede. Tapos especially yun nga, mas nagiging stricto ang movement ng eggs from AI positive areas. So that's what you do. Now, if tapos na yung outbreak, tahimik na, wala nang mortalities, it's very important to clean and disinfect the area. So remnants from the past infected flock should be removed. Anything like feathers, ipot, tirang feeds, anything organic should be cleaned and disinfected. Tatanggalin, tatapon, or disinfect. The longer the downtime, the better. And then have sentinel birds or do samples testing and surveillance. And then once you do this, you always comply with the local authorities so that they are step by step with you with repopulating your farm. Nakikita nila na you comply with the requirements, and then you might be able to get your bird flu free status again. Okay? So right now, nire-require na lang dito ay sentinel poultry. So what is sentinel poultry? Sentinel poultry, maglalagay ka po ng manok doon sa infected area. Itetest yung manok for how many days? Pag wala na pong titers or walang ma-detect na virus from those birds, then that farm is considered bird flu free na po ulit. So with that, hopefully may natutunan kayo, and if symptoms persist, you consult your veterinarian. Okay, Rods?
Ayun. Hello.
Yun.
Ayan. So, thank you, Doc Oji, for that lecture. So, I'm sure na with all the tips and information you've shared, kayang-kaya na ng ating mga participants mas lalo pang pagandahin yung mga biosecurity programs na meron na sila and get a higher score. Kanina kasi in the module before this one, you mentioned na may 72 points and that 40% yung passing score. So at least mas makaka-contribute to whenever pag i-evaluate sila ng LGU with the things that they know now, mas ma-achieve nila. It's easier for them to achieve 40% na passing score. Pero mamaya sa quiz natin, it's 50% yung passing. So kung sa LGU, 40% sa atin, 50% yung passing dun sa quiz ni Doc OG later after the Q&A. So, ayun. Pero more than just creating an effective program, which the third module is about, paano nga ba ang gagawin nating mga vets? Should there be an outbreak? So, paano natin ito i-manage? How do we control and repopulate? And more so, how can we render our farms clean from this disease, not just physically but also on paper from the perspective of inspectors. So just to check if everyone is still here, may tanong ulit kami through the poll. Ay, wala na palang poll, sorry. Well, mamaya pa pala yung poll after the after the Q&A na lang yung next poll natin. So ayan, so let's move on to our last module. Okay, so in this module, Doc OG will discuss repopulation requirements and compliance. Ayan, so I'll give the floor back to Doc OG.
All right, actually, I don't know if I'm talking too fast with all these topics kasi, but this time I'm gonna share an experience on how Batangas was able to be added on the bird flu free status province. So nakita ko kasi merong mga participants na they're coming from provinces that has not gained the bird flu free status yet. So hopefully you learn something from this experience on how to regain that. So this is what we did. we had our first confirmed HPI highly pathogenic bird flu case in Batangas last December 2022. Di ko siya makalimutan kasi magki-Christmas shopping ako nito, biglang nag-alert ang LGU ng Batangas sa amin na, oh my God, it's already here. So what do we do? And I've said, well, since 2017, we have our protocols already. So let's do the protocols. So we were able to look at that we had an H5N1 case confirmed through PCR in a leisure farm in Batangas. So sabi ko, when this happened, we have to inform everybody. So we informed it through the Public Information Office of Batangas, who made the statement. But we had to tell everybody it happened in a leisure farm. Why is it important to indicate why it happened in a leisure farm? It is because we want everybody to know that this could be an isolated case. This does not come from a commercial poultry farm, and we are looking at how it was infected. So once we got the official statement in public, sabay-sabayan na press statement, then eventually kinal out lahat ng infected birds. Immediately may surveillance activities. Immediately nakipag-coordinate ang mayor ng Ibaan, nagkaroon kagad ng checkpoints. Kasi yun nga, importante talaga, as I've said, it's a quick response. And because all of us in Batangas during this time, we have our bird flu technical working group already. We already know what to do. And we don't need to inform the police and the politicians because we already oriented them also because we're already prepared. So all of this was prepared during the week it was reported. Then eventually, yun nga, the tests were done fast kasi medyo emergency case siya. 3 days after the report, nagkaroon ng laboratory confirmation 3 days. Pagkalabas ng laboratory results, depopulation, pinatay kagad lahat ng manok. Lahat ng birds kasi ducks ang involved. Then eventually, the same day na nirelease ang results, nag-meeting na kami. Then immediately na gawa yung outbreak response plan. How does the outbreak response plan look like? I'll show you later. But what were the birds affected during that time? During that time, the birds affected were mallard ducks, Muscovy ducks, guinea fowls, turkeys, and native chickens. Basically, this farm, leisure farm, wanted it to be a resort wherein people can, interact with nature. Yun nga lang, the ducks that they bought, ayaw aminin sa amin sa nila kinuha, actually were infected and they started dying and contaminating. So eventually, nung positive sila sa test, we killed, dinepopulate talaga as mandated by law. So this was our flow chart. So ganito po kami kahanda. The Provincial Veterinary Office with all the government agencies. Immediately we identified the area, mapped it out. The 1 kilometer, 7 kilometer area eventually was defined immediately. So, upon confirmation, yun nga, nobody got left behind. It informed stakeholders, informed the government, it informed everybody. So, we discussed the AI response plan and made sure we followed what was stated in the Avian Influenza Protection Program. We identified the infected premise, the quarantine area, the surveillance area. Sa quarantine area, nandun po yung checkpoints. Then sa surveillance area, ito yung naging challenge. Because Batangas is a big poultry province. Ang dami naming poultry doon. So we identified immediately how many farms are hit by the 7-kilometer radius. And upon looking at it, we were able to define that it will need the help of everybody for us to be able to do the surveillance and test all the farms immediately. Because again, a quick response is key. So this was the infected premise. Ginugel maps namin kaagad. At kitang-kita naman na walang commercial farms na malapit, which was good. Pero ito yung parang sinasabing parang kanal na pwedeng may migratory birds or whatever, pero wala kaming na-detect during that time. Pero yun nga, ito yung lugar na kung saan nangyari yung bird flu, nakita na walang commercial farms na malapit. So sa 1 kilometer area, we were quite relieved na at least walang mahahawa kagad in the vicinity. So we were able to map it out, stamp it out. And importante is magkaroon ng surveillance kagad immediately para malalaman namin kung kumakalat ba siya o hindi. So the surveillance area, 7 kilometers ngayon. So ilang farms yun, ilang municipalities na kailangan kolektahan. So ito yung ibaan, minap out namin ng 7 kilometer area at ito nga ang tinamaan yan. Tatamaan ng Padre Garcia, Rosario, Taysan, at ang Batangas City at part ng San Jose. Sa itsura pa lang yan, ang daming farms na tatamaan. And true enough, in Ibaan, there were 20 barangays with poultry. In San Pascual, 10 barangays with poultry. San Jose, 9 barangays with poultry. Rosario, 1 barangay with poultry. And Batangas, 65 barangays that we need to test. So imagine the amount of farms that needs to be visited and tested. And this is where nagkaroon talaga ng napakagandang sense of bayanihan ng mga veterinarian sa Batangas. Especially, I would commend the Layer Association there, BEPA, kasi sila talaga ang isa sa mga nag-spearhead at nag-lead ng pag-test ng kanilang mga kasama. So, yun, this is Doc Apple, Borlasa, and a group of BEPA. So, yun nga, all types of birds from all barangays were tested. And they were able to achieve that in a short amount period of time because all of them nagtulungan po. So dito, sa picture na to, this is practitioners in the area. And these are the group of sales people. And yun, Doc Jess Medina, Boss Agot, a farm owner, and the rest na nagtulungan talaga to make sure to screen the 7-kilometer surveillance area. So while they're doing the surveillance, the LGU was making sure of cleaning and disinfecting the infected flocks. So napaka-stringent niyan. May second cleaning, disinfection 2 weeks after. May rest period. Then eventually, yun nga, nakakuha kaagad kami ng sentinel birds. Yun ang nilagay namin kaagad. Nagkaroon tayo ng testing ng 7 days, 21 days, at 35 days. And because of that, naging negative po siya kaagad. So dahil isang case rin lang siya at hindi na siya nadagdagan, mas naging madali for Batangas to comply with the requirements for repopulation. So ito yung naging timeline namin. Noong December, the population surveillance. January, cleaning disinfection surveillance. February, hinihintay na lang namin yung sentinel birds. Tapos ganun pa rin, may network pa rin. Nagtulungan, nagbayanihan, nag-donate ng mga disinfectants para sa lahat. So lahat, ibang mga kumpanya, ibang farms, nag-donate rin po. December kami nagkaroon ng bird flu case. Nakuha namin ang bird flu free status namin ng June. So December, January, February, March, April, May. So halos 6 to 7 months before namin nakuha ulit ang aming bird flu free status. At dahil nga nangyari na ang bird flu sa Batangas, at nakita namin gaano siya ka-hassle, naging mas stricto kami in terms of really implementing our anti-bird flu campaign. So still, we have a very active, in this picture ng OPV Batangas, this is the bird flu technical working group of Batangas. We still meet regularly. And we still have our local memorandum wherein we still do not allow the entry of ready-to-lays from other provinces in the province, and we still do not allow pigeon racing, and we still follow the documentations needed. Okay? So, with that, as you would see, medyo matrabaho ang kuha ng bird flu free status. Pero if all the veterinarians unite and help each other, it becomes faster. And yun na nga because na-educate namin yung province, yung police, yung mga politicians, yung mayor, na wag na ilabas ang mga infected flock, patayin talaga lahat yan. Walang nahawa na ibang farms. Yun kasi ang naging problema ng ibang provinces, why kumalat ang bird flu sa area nila. Kasi ni-report, for example, I won't say the province, na-report na may suspect bird flu ang isang farm. Nung nalamang papunta na yung taga-bahay or taga-LGU to inspect the farm, si farm binenta yung manok. Nung binenta yung manok, lahat na napagbentahan, nahawa rin. Na pag ganyan kasi ang ginawa ng community nyo po, ang hirap talagang kontrolin ng inyong bird flu infection kasi nga kumalat na yung infected animals. Always remember, in terms of bird flu, containment talaga is key. Kung ano yung may sakit, i-contain nyo po. Kaysa mag-suffer ang buong province. Hanggang ngayon, hindi nyo pa makuha ang bird flu free status nyo. Okay? Now ngayon, if wala na talagang cases sa area nyo, lahat ng naging positive na cases, reported, confirmed, do the 7-kilometer surveillance, do the sentinel birds so that you can get your bird flu free status. It will take a long time, but it's better to start than wait na wala na lang and accept it na hindi, nandiyan na talaga yan. Kasi accepting it as it is may just tolerates these farms who don't follow the Avian Influenza Protection Program kasi. Kaya I think there should be an active role for the veterinarians in the area for bird flu control to work. Okay? So all our drive is now, we're looking for a bird flu free nation, a bird flu free Philippines. And as long as we're united in crisis, we can survive this. And if symptoms persist, you always consult your veterinarian. And this is where I end my presentation. And I think I'm now ready to open. I'm open now to answer the questions for this session. Thank you.
Okay. Doc OG, maraming salamat po. And that's like what Doc OG said, that's gonna be our last module for this webinar. And the next ones, yung next part na neto is yung Q&A. So again, it's nice to know na there are measures in place by the government to ensure na controls are being implemented para maiwasan yung pag-spread nito. Okay, so I am sure madaming natutunan ng ating mga attendees na for the last segment we'll be answering a few questions that we have been compiling over the past few hours, no? Okay, isa-isahin po natin siya.
Actually, medyo kinakabahan ako, Rods, ang dami.
Ayun. Pero before muna tayo mag Q&A, parang hold muna natin yung kaba natin, Doc OG, no? Mag-poll muna po tayo. So just like earlier, there will be a small window that will pop up in your screen. That's gonna be our last poll for today. And in your opinion, which preventive measure is the most critical to implement in avian influenza control? So biosecurity, regular surveillance and testing of birds in at-risk areas, vaccination programs for poultry populations, or all of the above. Okay. Actually, may mga topics sa the Filipino Vet that's sa thefilipinovet.com that can help you implement mga control measures for avian influenza and biosecurity. So you will find all sorts of topics and articles in the filipinovet.com. And sa the Filipino Vet, sa PVET app naman, you will able to find a lot of drug references para for decontamination, for preventive illnesses, mga vaccines, nandun din yun, mga gamot, for various animals. Makikita niyo po doon. Okay. So antayin lang natin, i-populate natin hindi ang ating farms, but yung sagot sa survey na to. Yun naman ang i-populate natin. Medyo dumadami yung mga tanong natin.
Rods, nakikita ko na, it's all coming in.
Opo. Bali, isa-isahin po natin yan. Okay.
At least we have a lot of time now to answer all these questions. So,
Opo. So, ayun. In your opinion, which preventive measure is the most critical to implement in avian influenza control? So, 68% answered all of the above. Next is 29% who answered biosecurity. Now, all of these topics were covered naman in the 4 modules that were discussed. No? Okay, move on tayo, Sir Doc Oji, sa questions. No? Starting with Dr. Keith. I think this was the first one that came in. In the Philippines, what are the preventive measures being practiced by poultry vets to avoid being infected with AI during flock health monitoring of a suspected farm?
So, yun, as discussed on my last presentation, during outbreak management, containment talaga. Yun talaga yung una namin ginagawa, and your best weapons for that would be your disinfection facilities. Disinfectant and your fences preventing entry and movement inside and outside your farm. Kung may lalabas or papasok man, foot bath, maliligo, may uniform, aerial disinfection, puro ganun po. Kasi you have to understand you're dealing with a virus. So anything that can stop the virus, you have to put it in. And yun nga, as discussed rin on my third presentation, there are some products right now that we're testing. We're testing alpha-monolaurin, we're testing interferon, we're testing phytogenics essential oils. Anything with antiviral claim, yun nilalagay na po namin. And so far, they've been helping reduce mortalities from suspect cases. And sometimes to the point talaga na prevent talaga namin ng mortalities. Tapos, yun nga, only to know pag tinest, ay hindi pala siya bird flu. Pero bottom line, at least may nagawa kami kaagad. Pero as of now, it's still biosecurity and with the addition of your antiviral agents. So yun, Rods. For your hopefully Keith is satisfied with my answer.
Okay. Okay, next question po, Doc, from Dr. Donovan Marcelan. Since 2020, Vietnam has claimed a vaccine, and now the Philippine government is considering that vaccine. So he's referring to the Vietnam vaccine. Any update on the details of this vaccine po?
I think the Vietnam vaccine that he's talking about is for African swine fever. That is for pigs. But if he's talking about the vaccine for bird flu, what we're talking about is the vaccine from Indonesia, vaccine from France, and the vaccine from the US. So these are right now the vaccines that we're looking at to be studied and to be tested here in the country. Pero yung Vietnamese vaccine po, that's ASF. That's not the bird flu vaccine.
Okay. At least, malinaw
Pero
po.
right now, yun nga, as I mentioned earlier, there has been public consultations already with the use of these registered vaccines already.
Okay. Well, at least malinaw po yun, Doc, no? So, bali, third question naman from Dr. Faustino Jr. Vaccination was mentioned aside from the population. Is there any instance of vaccination against AI in the Philippines? If none, would you recommend the development of local vaccine versus AI?
Okay. Sadly, there's been reports of the usage of illegally shipped vaccines for bird flu here in the Philippines already. And sadly, some of the farms that used this were still wiped out with bird flu. So, what does this mean? Vaccines as a solution seems to be effective. It worked in the US, it worked in Indonesia, it worked in other parts of the world. Pero yun nga, it was used in conjunction with the government, in conjunction with the community, and with high surveillance. Kaya, as a solution, as I said earlier, the usage of a bird flu vaccine is like giving a firearm. It should only be used by people who know how to use the vaccine, has the capability to do the surveillance and measure the vaccine's efficacy, and should be guided by an experienced veterinarian. So, yun lang po. So, right now, wag po tayong masyadong magmadali. The government is already considering vaccination. So, there are vaccines to be studied. Me personally, I'm studying the vaccines too. Will I use it? No, not yet. I will have to look at how effective it is. Now, there was a question, Rods, no, if a local strain is more effective. Yes, of course, it will be more effective if we use our own strain that is isolated in the Philippines. Because bird flu as a problem, as a disease, there needs to be a match. Okay? So the vaccine that we use should match. So if it's locally produced, then the matching would be better and higher. Thus, protection would be perceived to be better. Okay?
Okay. Okay. Sige, Doc OG, thank you for that answer. Bali, ito next question. Anonymous siya. So, hello, Dr. OG. Thank you for the informative session on AI. Do you know how frequent ba conduct animal welfare seminars are? So, gaano daw kadalas mag-conduct ng animal welfare seminars ang Bureau of Animal Industry?
Okay. The most recent seminar that the Bureau of Animal Industry did was July 13. So last month lang. This month lang. July pa pala ngayon. Sorry. July 13. So for you to be updated with the announcements from BAI, kasi parang ang napansin ko parang every 2 months or every 3 months silang merong seminar. I would advise you follow the Facebook page of BAI, Animal Health and Welfare Division. Kasi doon ko rin nakukuha yung information ko. Then sinishare ko na lang ang link sa clients ko. Pero the last seminar they did for accreditation for animal welfare was last July 13. And it's free, It's free.
Okay. Also, I think it's also on their website. It's also on their website. It's also being announced on their Facebook page. So I guess we all just need to follow yung mga social media and digital platforms nila.
That's the new normal.
That's the new normal. And I think there's also a mandate from the DICT wherein all government bodies should digitalize their announcements to the public. No? So BAI included.
So that makes it easier for everybody now to comply.
Okay, for our next question naman, from Dr. Paulino Abad. There was a mention of 7 provinces free of AI as of this month. Can these localities be considered as AI-free compartment? Who will determine an AI-free compartment?
Okay. The one who will determine the AI-free compartment is, I think, still the Bureau of Animal Industry. Now, the AI-free province just indicates there's no more active bird flu infection in that province. Yun lang ibig sabihin ng AI freedom. But for a compartment kasi, each farm should have your animal welfare certificate, all the documents. So if you put it as a province, you are submitting to the province, to BAI, that all farms in that province has complied already. So pag yung province ang ginawa natin, medyo mahirap. Kasi, for example, sa municipality na to, lahat ba ng farms dito may papeles? Lahat ng farms ba dito may vets? So, right now, ang nakikita kong kuwan ng compartment talaga is little by little, lahat ng highly dense poultry barangays, sila magkaisa na meron silang single biosecurity and documentation system, they have it recognized as a compartment. Once they get that, you spread out to other barangays rin. Kasi the problem with the whole province na submission, ang laki ng surveillance na gagawin mo. Kasi isipin mo, for that compartment, lahat po ng farms ay may papeles at lahat ng farms na yan ay tested. Pwede po, pero hindi siya automatic na AI-free province ka, AI-free compartment ka na. Kasi ang definition ng compartment is lahat ng farms with a biosecurity system and documentation na papasa sa BAI na lahat kayo ay nasunod nun at lahat kayo ay certified, tested to be part of that compartment.
Okay. So, yun po. So, ito, another question from Dr. Ingrid Hernandez. Good afternoon. Has it been identified as to what age of birds avian influenza affects? Ayan.
Yun. Actually, Kwan, so far, based on our experience, it affects old birds. Sa experience namin na nare-report sa amin na cases, mas napansin namin siyang mas maraming tinatamaan na matandang ibon. May nakita ba kaming sisiw, chicks na tinamaan? Honestly, personally, I haven't encountered those cases. Pero if you look at older birds, mas nakikita namin siyang tinatamaan. Kaya usually mga ready-to-lay pullets or culled, recycled culled birds namin na-observe yung bird flu cases ngayon sa Pilipinas. Yun, Ron. Okay.
Okay po. Okay, ito, next question from Dr. Paulino Abad. This is his second question na rin. So, were you able to determine how the leisure farm got to introduce infected ducks into their facility, source, and how it passed through your community checkpoints?
Yun. Sadly, the farm reported that they bought the ducks from a locally raised farmer rin in Ibaan. Do we believe them? I honestly, I don't. But because yun ang lumabas sa investigation, we cannot contest it anymore. So, because the source farm naman ay nagdepopulate na rin, we just focus na lang on the infected birds. But we educated everybody in that area that introducing birds, and yun nga, if lumulusot sila sa checkpoints, they are increasing the risk. At nakita nila gaano kahassle ngayon pag tinamaan ang barangay at ang probinsya. So sadly, Doc, we were not able to find the source, but allegedly, they were locally raised daw. Pero yun nga, what we are doing na lang is, okay, kung yan, you stick to that story, and then we'll just have to control what we can control.
Okay. Sige po, next question. Also from Dr. Ingrid Hernandez. Good afternoon. Can agricultural lime and chlorine be used as disinfection against AI? So ang pinaghalong lime, agricultural lime and chlorine.
Lime or apog? Lime is, pag nilagay mo siya sa ipot, it can kill viruses. It's not a conducive environment for viruses to thrive. So does it work? Yes, it can initially work. But for you to put it sa road, kasi yun ang ginagawa for ASF eh. Does it help for bird flu? It can help in a bit. Ang problema ko lang sa lime, it's solid. And once it is already contaminated with organic material, nade-deactivate na rin siya. Kasi lime kasi, for it to work, direct contact siya sa virus. Chlorine, there is a certain level of chlorine for it to be virucidal. Not because there's chlorine, immediately mamamatay ang virus. Kasi some dosages of chlorine is antiseptic or antibacterial lang. So if you're looking at an antiviral claim, you need a stronger chlorine na timpla para makontrol mo yung virus. But do these items work? Yes, they can help. But alone, they're not enough. It's part of a good biosecurity plan though.
Okay. Sige po. Next question also from Dr. Antonio Laison. Is this the bird flu, at least the entire talk, no, that infects humans?
Yes. If it is reported as highly pathogenic AI, then it has the ability to be zoonotic. So if it's H5 or H7, delikado pong mahawa yung tao, kaya kasama rin sa surveillance yung tao. So, awa ng Diyos, wala pa tayong reported case sa humans here in the Philippines. Pero we're still very careful with that because H5N1 can be transmitted to humans.
Okay.
Pero yun nga, ang hindi ko lang na-discuss pala, Rods, parang on my last lecture kasi, I was able to discuss the zoonosis kasi of bird flu from birds to humans. For a human to be infected by bird flu from the bird, you need to be in direct contact with an infected bird and you need to be able to inhale a lot of viral material. At saka, para siyang COVID, kung may comorbidity ka, madali kang tamaan ng bird flu rin. Pero kung healthy ka, at nagdi-disinfect ka, may face mask ka, you do your regular anti-COVID na kuan, you can prevent bird flu from getting in your body also.
Okay. Sige po. Thank you, Doc. Ito, a follow-up question from Dr. Keith De La Cruz. Ito yung first question kanina. No? He was referring to the vet himself, no? Yung veterinarian mismo. How do you protect yourselves? Do you take preventive medicines before going to suspected farms? No? Kayo mismo, how do you protect yourself?
Ito, gusto ko lang siyang i-highlight. Kami sa Philippine College of Poultry Practitioners, kasi knowing that we are the ones on the front line looking at these types of cases, we have our regular flu vaccine. Not necessarily bird flu, but we have our regular flu vaccine. So the flu vaccine in itself can help you address this bird flu challenge. Kahit paano may antibodies ka against the flu virus. Siyempre, again, health-wise, if you have a comorbidity, delikado ka rin sa bird flu. So make sure you have your PPE, your face mask, you have your alcohol, and you need to be able to be alert and identify these problems in the first hand. Drinking your vitamins and eating nutritious food also will also help with your immunity. So kahit paano, you'll just have to consider bird flu like another flu virus. So as a practicing veterinarian exposed to chickens, so just do your anti-flu practices and medications and you're good.
Okay. Sige po. Ito from an anonymous sender. So how about political involvement, sir? Gaya nung nangyari sa Central Visayas. What's our call as vets?
Yon. Honestly, yung sa Visayas po, I was in contact with the provincial vet there during the 2022 outbreak. And what I see as a challenge in the Visayas area is for the stakeholders and the LGU vet to come in agreement on what to do. Ang nangyayari kasi sa Visayas, ito personal ko lang na opinion to, based sa observation ko as an outsider. The local veterinarian has imposed immediately the rules and regulations, pero how it was communicated to the stakeholders, parang hindi siya, mas kailangan pa siyang maintindihan ng stakeholders kasi so that they will support the bird flu mitigation programs. So, yun nga sinasabi namin. Sa Batangas, what we did was private stakeholders, private veterinarians, and government veterinarians, and farm owners, nag-meeting talaga kami in terms na anong papagkakasunduan at doable. At hindi rin siya harmful sa magiging business climate. Once everybody's on the same page, it's just a matter of communication lang po. And sometimes, naghihintayan lang minsan kung sino yung magsi-spearhead ng meeting. Okay? Now, as ako, private practitioner ako aaminin ko, umepal talaga. Umepal ako sa local government. Bakit? Kung hindi ako sasali, kabuhayan ko ang apektado eh. Mawawalan ng trabaho. Pag tinamaan ng bird flu ang probinsya, mawawalan ng trabaho. So how did I make my voice heard through the government? I made it heard by coordinating with the raisers na nakakaintindi ng bird flu. And then we had a dialogue with the local government vets. Nung nagkaroon ng dialogue ng maayos, minsan kasi sometimes mas maganda rin na konti lang yung mga tao mag-a-attend for the meantime. Kasi pag masyadong marami rin, medyo magulo talaga. Pero if you have your industry leaders, your private practitioners, your local PVMA, your PCPP member, your local consultant, your farm owner, then you talk to the vet, the provincial vet, kasi ang provincial vet, siya rin na magre-report kasi sa local governor, sa mayor, na ito kasi ang napapag-usapan. Sila mag-explain ng science sa mga politikong ito. Sometimes, pag we go directly to the politicians might get advice from other people kasi. So, let's course it through their system, and once it's communicated properly, nagiging effective po siya. Medyo challenging, pero somebody has to lead. Yun lang sinasabi namin dito. And I think a veterinarian, especially pag bird flu ang pinag-uusapan, a veterinarian should lead. So if you need help, ayun, libre naman kami. Hindi naman libre. You can call the chicken doctors para kami mag-mediate at magbigay ng experience in terms of doing this. But then you can also contact PCPP, you can also contact PVMA, you can also contact BAI mismo. Basta all can be done with proper dialogue. Tsaka may AIPP na eh. It's not new. It's just how it is to be implemented. You'll just have to follow the AIPP. Thank you, Anonymous Attendee. Hopefully na sagot kita.
Okay. So, next question also from Dr. Keith De La Cruz. What do you think is the rational explanation to not having AI in the early 2000s despite all the other ASEAN countries being affected already?
Number one, surveillance. Nobody didn't know what bird flu looked like before. So we might be getting hit already, but because the birds die off lang, kaya hindi na siya na-report. What makes this outbreak different? This outbreak seems to be a more aggressive form of bird flu kasi. And as you would see, ang hirap niyang tanggalin ngayon. And it's been a global problem. And the migratory birds are not helping. They're actually making matters worse because they keep introducing this aggressive strain to our ecosystem. Kaya lagi na tayong may challenge ngayon as compared before. So that's our problem right now. That's the difference between before and right now.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Ayun po. Bali, we have a few more questions left. Tatlo na lang last I checked, unless dumagdag to, no? But this one is from Dr. Faustino Ikatlo. Second question niya na to. Development of a modified live vaccine is notoriously time-consuming and tricky, as can be seen with the ASF viral vaccine development. So would an inactivated vaccine for bird flu be acceptable enough?
Yes. Kasi honestly, Doc, I don't want to use a live vaccine rin. Why? Because we're talking about viral shedding. And if you use a live vaccine, that live vaccine can shed and might cause future problems. Will the killed vaccines be enough? As long as surveillance is done, we were able to find that as long as you maintain a protective titer from multiple inactivated vaccines with the right strain, homologous strain, it has been known to prevent reinfection of birds being exposed to bird flu. So, do inactivated vaccines work? Yes, they do. They're safer as compared to using a modified live vaccine. But again, locally, we still have to establish our local data. For example, duration of immunity, how much titers do these vaccines really give? So these are being studied now by the PCPP, PVMA, BAI.
Okay.
And Rods.
Ito, last two questions na po, Doc. Bali, this one is from an anonymous sender as well. So, Doc, based on your experience, how did you convince the farmers to surrender their birds or animals during your culling?
Ang sinabi kasi namin, ganito. Pag yan ang kumalat, dahil sa nabenta nyo, masisisihin kayo ng probinsya nyo, ng community nyo. Kaya mas maigi ng kontrolin na lang natin ang kaya nating kontrolin at linisin natin ang farm para makabalik tayo kaagad. Kasi kaysa panandalian, magiging pera mo yan. Pero yung konsensya mo na lang na ibang kabuhayan ay na apektuhan mo, ay di ko lang alam. Kung kaya ng konsensya mo, di wala na akong magawa. Pero yun ang parang moral obligation ng isang farmer for those kinds of diseases. But once they understand kasi, ang inisip kasi nila, naku, pag may bird flu, di na ako makakapag-farm or di na ako makakabalik. You can go back to farming as long as you were able to clean your farm immediately and follow the protocols. Ganun lang po. So it's up to the veterinarian talaga to give that fighting chance to the raiser and let them do the right thing. And which is usually, pag may bird flu talaga, is to report and cull.
Okay. Okay, Doc. Ito, another question. Based on your experience, Doc, how many days does it take to have 100% mortality caused by AI? How many days should be the ideal time to confine the outbreak within the farm?
Well, ganito. Based on our local experience, yung 2 weeks na spread ng sakit talaga, nangyayari siya. For example, you see mortalities right now, tapos hindi mo siya na-identify na bird flu immediately, the next week baka ubos ka na. Ganun siya kabilis. Ganun siya kabilis pumatay. Kasi nakikita namin sa ibang cases na nare-report sa amin, exponential siya eh. Yung isang case na nare-report sa akin, yung una araw, 300 lang ang patay. The next day, naging 1,000. Then, naging 4,000. And eventually, naubos yung 2 building niya. So, ganun siya kabilis.
Okay. Ayun. Ito po, another question from an anonymous sender. Doc, is it really the migratory birds or the massive importation of game fowls, mga pangsabong, ang tunay na salarin? So,
migratory birds globally talaga ang nagkakalat ng bird flu sa iba't ibang parts ng mundo. sila mismo talaga. Actually, ducks are the reservoir of bird flu. Pero kasi ganito yan, for game fowls kasi, kung positive ang game fowl na inimport, hindi yan darating ng Pilipinas ng buhay. Patay na rin yan kasi may sakit na siya. So, to be fair to the game fowl industry, it's as long as the game fowl birds had the proper papers and testing. Kasi hindi ka rin naman makaka-import ng game fowl na hindi ka nag-bird flu test dun sa source country. Not unless smuggled siya. Pero kahit smuggled siya, hindi mabubuhay yun, patay yun eh. So, globally, the spread of bird flu talaga, even in talking to other scientists, migratory birds pa rin talaga ang pinaka-culprit namin.
Okay, Doc. Ito, I think this is gonna be our last question, no? Unless madagdagan siya habang sinasagot nyo. From Dr. Paulino Abad. Have you conducted a parallel test on the effectivity of alpha monolaurin as antiviral agent against AI or any viral infection for that matter? Not necessarily AI.
Against AI, hindi pa. Kasi personally nga, I have not personally in person handled an AI case talaga. Pero using alpha monolaurin against other envelope viruses, yes. We did it with Newcastle disease, we did it with infectious bronchitis, we did it with infectious laryngotracheitis, with serological, with serological surveillance. Nakita namin na meron talaga siyang reduction in the number of mortalities and even the spread nung kumalma yung titers ng birds na affected with additional changes rin in production and mortalities. So do we think it's working? I think it's working, but yun nga, we're still studying it pa more kung ano talagang pinaka-effective niya na program. But again, yun nga, I encourage other veterinarians to do these kinds of studies, especially with any product with an antiviral claim. So alpha monolaurin is a good molecule. Is it the ultimate solution? I'm not saying it is not, pero it seems to be helping.
Okay. May isa pang question na humabol. I think nakita ko just now, no? Kakapasok lang, Doc Oji. From Dr. Lloyd Burata. Hi, Doc Oji. What can be the risk of pigeon racing in AI outbreaks?
Okay. Yun sa Batangas, yan. Napakainit na issue ng pigeon racing sa amin because the farmers, the local layer farms and broiler farms would not allow them to race because of the risk. What is the risk of pigeon racing kasi? Pigeon racing, if I understand it right, they would fly this bird from one location and they would expect it to land on another location. So the first pigeon to arrive there is the winner. Parang ganon. Now the problem is the flight path for the pigeon and where it rests, hindi natin alam kung may commingling na nangyayari with a migratory bird or commingling with an infected farm. Now, kung may commingling na nangyayari sa pigeon at umipot yan habang lumilipad na drop ng infected feces sa farm mo, kahit ang ganda pa ng biosecurity mo, yun ang magiging source ng infection, yung ipot galing sa pigeon. That's why we're asking the pigeon racing community na they should come up, they should have a veterinarian also to explain their biosecurity measures and their bird flu prevention from their birds so that they can do their practices na rin. Kasi nakakaawa rin sila kasi passion nila yun eh. But they have to consider the concerns of the community na health risk talaga siya sa bird flu kasi free bird siya eh. Hindi mo alam kung mahirap kasi sa pigeon racing yung traceability ng infection. Pag may nangyaring infection, hindi mo alam saan niya nakuha. Kasi hindi mo alam yung flight path, hindi mo alam saan naglanding, hindi mo alam kung kaninong farm nagpahinga, at hindi mo rin alam kung kaninong bird siya na-expose. So that's the danger. So that's the questions that needs to be answered. Now, if the pigeon raisers can answer those questions with the right type of medication or right type of anti-bird flu, I think their veterinarian would be the best person to answer that.
Okay. So Koji, we just answered 18 questions. I mean kayo, you just answered 18 questions, no? And thank you so much for that. Sobrang nasagot natin yung mga tanong ng ating mga attendees, no? So ayun, that's the last question and that's it. So that's the end of our webinar, no? Siguro Doc Oji, before I move on to the quiz part, I just wanna ask you if you have any final message to our attendees.
Ayun. I'm quite overwhelmed to see a lot of attendees for this seminar. Kasi my worry was, they might think it's the same presentation from our last bird flu session. So I was worried that we don't have any attendees. But to see this active discussion and to see this number of attendees, I'd like to thank PVET again for this opportunity to be able to share this information. And yun na nga, the more vets we convince na to fight bird flu in their own respective areas and provinces, the faster we can defeat bird flu talaga and have a bird flu free nation. So to PVET, please continue doing these types of seminars, doing these types of information campaigns. To the veterinarians, let's continue to support PVET. PVET has been a very good tool for us. Yan ang kodigo ko for mga gamot. And again, as I've always, ito paulit-ulit ko to na, as long as we're united in crisis, we can survive this. So thank you.
Okay, Doc. Thank you po. Bali, so that's it for the end of our webinar, no? Now, as I have mentioned numerous times throughout this afternoon, as mandated nga by the Philippine Regulatory Commission, all attendees of this webinar are required to answer a quiz after our Q&A segment. So you will also be required to answer a feedback form right after the quiz. So dalawa po yan nasasagutan natin. So yung quiz na may 50%, tapos yung feedback form na requirement din ng PRC. So the link to the quiz can be found in the chat section of Zoom. So that's in the leftmost icon at the bottom of your screens. Bali nandun po siya nakalagay. Click nyo lang po yung link na yun. It should lead you to a form where you will be required to answer the test, no? So you will have to complete this immediately. And pag nawala yung mukha ko dito and nag-play yung background, you only have 30 minutes to answer this. Again, wala po munang aalis. Do not leave the Zoom webinar just yet or close your Zoom window. So, kasi we will have to monitor everyone. Kailangan namin i-monitor yung mga taong magsasagot ng quiz at yung mga taong lalabas ng Zoom webinar. So, kailangan all should happen within the next 30 minutes from the time I sign out. Okay? So, you can click that or simply just type the link in your browser, so you should be able to it should be able to lead you to the quiz. So we will play a short 30-minute timer in a while, and that's the only time you have to complete the test. Once you're done, please let us know in the chat function here on Zoom that you are already done. So parang pass the test, pass the paper, no? So 10 tanong lang po yung questions, 10 tanong lang po yung test, and again the passing score is 50%. And just a gentle reminder that no quiz, no certificate, and that getting a score below 50% may result in getting your CPD credits reduced or no CPD points at all. Again, ulitin ko paulit-ulit na ako. No one leaves the Zoom webinar until you are done with the test. So isipin nyo na lang, nasa classroom po tayong lahat. And after you pass your papers or by clicking submit in this scenario, no, dun pa lang pwede lumabas ng kwarto. Okay? So, ready na po ba lahat? Ay, teka, may no link. Nasaan yung link? Ay, ito. We will be sending it in a while. Ito na po. Link, please. Ayan. Sent by PVET admin to everyone. Okay?
Rods, may nagtanong lang ng contact details ko. So, to the audience who want to be in touch, you can contact us through our Facebook page, The Chicken Doctors.
Sige po. So those who want to get in touch with Doc Oji, the Facebook page is the Chicken Doctors. So ayun po, you can bali we will share the link of the Facebook page in the chat in the we add in the chat box. So yan, the Chicken Doctors. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Sige po. Good evening. Good afternoon. Just a gentle reminder that you guys only have 10 minutes remaining, after which we will start with the ending procedure of this Zoom webinar. Okay. Thank you for your patience and cooperation. Okay? Okay, for the 40-something of you guys who are still here, kung tapos na po kayo sa inyong test, pwede na po kayo umalis ng Zoom webinar. Just click, mag-chat lang kayo na done, then pwede na po kayo umalis. For the meantime, wag nyo lang kami intindihin. We will be taking a picture of the group who made this event possible. So, mag-aano lang kami, mag-curtain call lang kami. So, be part of our report kasi. Dami ko sinabi. Hi, Doc. Picture lang tayo, Doc. Saka si Doc Kat. Doc Kat. Ayan. Picture lang tayo as part of the report. Wait lang. Where's the... Ito. Okay. Let's go. Ay. Wait lang, may nag-chat eh. Wait lang sorry. Ayan. Okay. Sige, take a picture. Okay, 1, 2, smile. Okay, isa pa. Wait lang. Wait lang po ah. Yes. Ay, wait lang. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Teka. Isa pa. One more. Wow. Ayan, teka. Yung may jawline ako. Wait lang. Ayan. Jawline. Ayan. Okay. Game. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay. Tapos na.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doc.
Okay, thank you, Doc Kat.
Thank you, Doc.
May-
session, Doc Kat.
Okay, meron
May
pang...
Cameo.
Ay, nakaraos rin. Thank
Opo.
God. Eggs.
Salamat.
Sige, Doc.
Sige. So, thank you,
Po, Doc
people.
Audrey.
May
Bye.
20-something pa na audience na nandito.
Sige, mauna na ako ha. Bye-bye.
Thank you po,
Doc,
Doc. Thank you
Oji,
po.
chat na lang po. Bye-bye po. Okay.
Bye.
Ayan. Bye-bye, Doc Kat.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Doc Kat. Bye po.
Leave.